3 minutes to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Friday, May 15th, 2026. While the British public was distracted by the festive images of Zara Tindall celebrating her 45th birthday, a high-security event was unfolding behind the heavy oak doors of the Blue Drawing Room at Buckingham Palace. This is not just a birthday celebration. It is the activation of a long-dormant royal protocol. Sources close to the palace confirm that at exactly 15:58 yesterday, a courier from the Lord Chamberlain's office delivered a weathered red leather briefcase directly to King Charles III's private desk. This isn't the standard daily red box. This is a dossier labeled with a single, chillingly precise code. Z-45. We are witnessing a seismic shift in the House of Windsor. For decades, Zara Tindall has been the ultimate outsider. The daughter of Princess Anne, who famously holds no title and receives no public funding. But as of this morning, May 16th, 2026, that civilian status is being weaponized. If you are watching this, you are witnessing the birth of what insiders are calling the national princess. She has just completed the final loyalty test, and the implications for the residents of Montecito, California, are devastating. Before we dive into the secret contents of that red briefcase, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. We are tracking this breaking story minute by minute as the palace prepares a formal announcement. Drop a comment below with the word protocol if you believe Zara is the secret weapon the monarchy has been waiting for. Your engagement helps us keep these investigative reports coming. The evidence of this transition has been hiding in plain sight for the last 7 days. Look back at the garden party held on May 8th. Protocol dictates that only senior, working royals with HRH titles stand in the greeting line to assist the Prince of Wales. Yet, there was Zara. She wasn't just a guest, she was operating with the clinical efficiency of a seasoned diplomat. Eyewitnesses report that Prince William was heard leaning toward his cousin, whispering a phrase that has since echoed through the hallways of the palace. He reportedly told her, "You are the only one who can bridge this gap right now. We need the Tindall factor." This Tindall factor is a masterclass in public relations leverage. By positioning a woman who technically remains a commoner next to the future king, the monarchy is sending a silent, non-verbal ultimatum to the world. They are proving they can create a global icon, a relatable, hard-working, and scandal-free royal, without the need for the HRH styling. It is a direct strike at the heart of the Sussex brand. While Harry and Meghan have spent years trying to monetize their titles in the United States, Zara has done the opposite. She has monetized her character, and now the king is calling in the debt. The mechanism is simple but lethal for her rivals. Step 1. Use Zara's civilian status to bypass the intense media scrutiny that follows titled royals. Step 2. Integrate her into high-stakes diplomatic roles under the guise of family support. Step 3. Trigger a public demand for her to be given a formal role. We are currently at Step 3. The palace isn't forcing Zara on us. They are waiting for us to beg for her. As the sun rises over London this morning, the chatter within the Cabinet Office suggests that the red briefcase contains a draft of a letters patent. This is a legal instrument that would allow the king to grant Zara extraordinary powers without the baggage of a traditional peerage. One senior aide was overheard describing the strategy as the Great Substitution. The aide remarked that for every headline the Sussexes generate with their commercial ventures, Zara provides a counter-narrative of quiet, unpaid duty. She is the antidote, the aide noted during a private briefing. She is the version of royal service the public actually wants to buy. We are now entering a period of extreme escalation. The deadline is approaching. By the time Trooping the Colour arrives next month, the Z-45 dossier will likely be implemented. The king is not just rewarding a niece for her birthday, he is restructuring the very foundation of the British monarchy to ensure its survival in a post-Elizabethan era. Keep your eyes on the screen. In the next few minutes, we will reveal the 3 potential scenarios that the palace has drafted for Zara's future, including the one that could permanently end Harry's hopes of a royal return. If you haven't liked this video yet, do it now. It tells the algorithm that this breaking news deserves to be seen. What do you think the king said to Zara when they met in private last night? Was it a thank you, or was it a command? Let's analyze the paper trail. To understand why Zara Tindall has become the most formidable asset within the British monarchy, we must look at the blueprint of a 45-year operation. This is not a story of accidental fame. It is the timeline of an indestructible ally built to withstand the very pressures that fractured the rest of the family. The foundation was laid on May 15, 1981, in Gloucestershire. When Zara was born, Princess Anne made a decision that many at the time considered a snub to tradition. She refused to care for her daughter. No HRH, no princess, just Zara Phillips. This activated the civilian freedom mechanism. By stripping away the title at birth, Anne created the only royal who is fundamentally cancellation-proof. Unlike others who can be stripped of their honours or titles by a vote in Parliament, Zara has nothing to lose because she was given nothing by the state. She is the only member of the family who can operate with total civilian liberty while maintaining the absolute trust of the crown. The strategy entered its second phase on January 8, 2020, during the infamous Sandringham Summit. As the Megxit crisis erupted and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex departed for California, they left behind a massive personnel void. High-level patronages and military roles were suddenly vacant. This was the moment the palace realized their traditional structure was brittle. They needed someone who could bridge the gap between the ancient institution and the modern world without the baggage of a taxpayer-funded salary. The gaze of the monarchy turned toward the Gloucestershire stables. The backup was ready to be activated. The transition from relative to essential asset was triggered on May 10, 2024, in Windsor. As the Princess of Wales focused on her recovery, Prince William found himself increasingly isolated on the front lines of royal duty. This was the activation of the Royal Rapid Response Team. Zara was quietly moved from the social periphery directly into the king's inner circle. For 2 years, she has served as the silent protector of the heir to the throne, providing a stable, scandal-free presence that neither the press nor the public could criticize. Everything changed just 8 days ago, on May 8, 2026, at the Buckingham Palace garden party. This was the moment the velvet glove was removed. Zara did not just attend the event, she commanded it. Breaking a century-old precedent that dictates only senior working royals with HRH titles may lead the greeting line, Zara stood at the very front. She was seen welcoming foreign heads of state and high-ranking diplomats with a level of authority that shocked seasoned palace watchers. One observer noted that her body language wasn't that of a guest, but of a host. She was acting as the de facto princess of the people. The final confirmation of her shadow royal status occurred yesterday, May 15, 2026. As the birthday celebrations began, and onlookers at the sovereign's entrance, a gate strictly reserved for the king and his most senior advisors, witnessed Mike and Zara's vehicle being waved through without a moment's delay. Entering through the sovereign's gate is the ultimate non-verbal signal of power. It confirms that Zara is no longer just a niece or a cousin. She is an integrated part of the sovereign's daily operations. But why now? Why would a woman who has spent 45 years as a civilian suddenly be granted the keys to the kingdom? The answer lies in a secret financial architecture that allows her to be more powerful than any duke or duchess. In our next analysis, we uncover the hybrid royal mechanism, a legal loophole that Harry and Meghan desperately wanted, but only Zara was allowed to use. You won't believe how she secured her fortune while maintaining her place at the king's right hand. To truly understand why the red dossier delivered yesterday carries such weight, we must dismantle the 45-year blueprint of a royal operation that was never meant to be televised. This is the rise of the indestructible ally. While other royals were bound by the golden handcuffs of titles and state funding, A silent architecture was being built around Zara Tindall, one that has now reached its tipping point. The foundation of this power play was poured on May 15, 1981, in Gloucestershire. Princess Anne did not simply decline a title for her daughter. She initiated a strategic vacuum. By refusing the HRH styling, Anne activated the Civilian Freedom Protocol. This made Zara the only member of the inner circle who is fundamentally unstrippable. Think about the legal reality. You cannot be stripped of a title you do not hold. You cannot be removed from a civil service list you were never on. Zara was born as a civilian with royal blood, granting her a unique form of sovereign immunity from the very public pressures that eventually broke the Sussexes. The first major catalyst for her activation occurred on January 8, 2020, during the now infamous Sandringham Summit. As the Megxit crisis sent shockwaves through the institution, it created what internal documents describe as a personnel hemorrhage. When Harry and Meghan walked away, they didn't just leave a family, they left a gaping hole in the monarchy's executive structure. Dozens of high-level patronages and diplomatic functions were suddenly vacant. The palace didn't look for a new working royal, they began grooming a shadow royal. The deployment became official on May 10, 2024, in Windsor. While the world focused on the Princess of Wales's brave health battle, a quiet shift occurred behind the scenes. Prince William found himself strategically exposed, a future king, standing alone against an unprecedented workload. It was on this date that Zara was formally integrated into the Royal Rapid Response Team. She began attending private briefings and high-level family councils, acting as the bridge between the king's private office and the public's need for stability. She became the flank protector for the heir to the throne. The public reveal of this new order happened just 8 days ago, on May 8, 2026. At the Buckingham Palace garden party, Zara Tindall did something that shattered a century of royal precedent. For over 100 years, the greeting line at these events has been the exclusive jurisdiction of working royals. Yet, there stood Zara, a civilian without a title, standing at the head of the line, welcoming heads of state and global dignitaries. She wasn't just a guest, she was the host. This was the visual confirmation that the old rules had been discarded. But it was what happened yesterday, on the morning of May 16, 2026, that sent the loudest signal to those who know how to read palace code. As the birthday celebrations began, Zara's vehicle was filmed entering the palace through the sovereign's entrance. This gate is not merely a door, it is a legal and symbolic boundary reserved strictly for the monarch and the most senior members of the household. Using this entrance confirms that Zara Tindall has moved beyond the status of a beloved relative. She has been granted sovereign access. The timeline is now complete. The civilian born in 1981 has become the most powerful non-working royal in history. But this raises a dangerous question for the rest of the family. How can Zara maintain a multi-million-dollar private career while standing at the king's right hand? The secret lies in a legal loophole that Harry and Meghan tried to exploit, but only Zara was allowed to master. The hybrid royal mechanism is about to change everything, and the details within that red briefcase are far more radical than anyone imagined. The burning question echoing through the halls of Westminster this morning is simple. How has Zara Tindall achieved the half-in, half-out lifestyle that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex so desperately craved, yet were denied? The answer lies within a sophisticated, three-step legal architecture we are calling the hybrid royal mechanism. This is the secret engine behind the dossier delivered yesterday at 15:58. Zara is not just a relative. She is the most dangerous chess piece on the board because she operates outside the traditional line of fire. The first layer of this mechanism is the funding shield. This is a financial masterstroke that grants Zara total public immunity. Unlike senior working royals, Zara does not receive a single penny from the sovereign grant, the taxpayer-funded pot that pays for palace upkeep and official travel. Instead, she has built a private empire through high-value commercial partnerships with global titans like Rolex and Land Rover. The activation condition here is absolute. Zero public funding equals zero public accountability. While the British press can scrutinise every pound spent by Prince William or King Charles, they have no legal standing to criticise Zara's income. She has achieved the ultimate royal paradox. She has the glamour of the palace but the financial autonomy of a private CEO. This shield ensures that the public never views her as a burden, but rather as a self-made success story who happens to be a royal. But financial independence is only half the story. The second step is proxy power, a legal bypass triggered by what insiders call temporary letters patent. We have learned that the king has the authority to sign specific, time-limited warrants that allow Zara to represent the crown at high-level diplomatic events without formally changing her status. This is the secret source of the May 8th garden party. It allows Zara to wield the authority of a senior royal while technically maintaining her commoner passport. She can greet a head of state in the afternoon and sign a commercial horse racing contract in the evening. It is a grey zone of authority that Parliament has yet to regulate, making her a flexible, high-impact asset that can be deployed anywhere in the world without the bureaucratic red tape that binds her cousins. The third and perhaps most provocative step is the invisible title. Many have speculated that King Charles would use Zara's 45th birthday to finally name her a princess. However, the dossier suggests a far more subtle strategy. Instead of a title that would spark a media frenzy or a title war with California, the king is reportedly moving to invest Zara with the highest rank of the Royal Victorian Order, the GCVO. This is a personal gift from the sovereign, granted for services to the monarchy. The result? Zara gains a rank and precedence that puts her on par with any princess in the room, but without the princess label that requires parliamentary oversight or constitutional debate. It is a title that exists in the shadows visible to the aristocracy and the diplomatic corps, but invisible to the critics of the monarchy. This hybrid model is the ultimate threat to the Sussex brand. It proves that the monarchy has found a way to modernise without giving in to the demands of those who left. Zara Tindall is the living proof that you can have it all: the private wealth, the public respect, and the king's ear, provided you follow the rules of the invisible architecture. But as this mechanism goes live, a new tension is rising. If Zara can act as a princess without the title, what happens to those who have the titles but none of the influence? The paper trail in that red briefcase suggests that a rank-and-file purge might be next. The national princess has been activated, and the old guard is terrified. The digital ink on Memorandum PC 2026 ZT is barely dry, yet its contents are already sending shockwaves through the highest levels of the British government. This is the document that formalizes what many have whispered in the corridors of power for months: a radical adjustment of the order of precedence. This is not merely a technicality. In the rigid 1,000-year-old hierarchy of the British monarchy, your place in the order of precedence determines everything from where you sit at a state banquet to how much protection you are afforded by the state. According to our sources, this memorandum, issued by the Privy Council, effectively promotes Zara Tindall to a status that bypasses several born-titled members of the family. But the paper trail goes much deeper than social seating charts. The most explosive revelation within this investigative dossier involves a dual-agency review currently underway at the Cabinet Office and the Home Office. We have confirmed that security analysts are evaluating a proposal to grant 24/7 armed protection to the Tindall family. This is a level of security typically reserved strictly for the sovereign, the Queen, and the direct heirs to the throne. For a woman who technically remains a civilian, this is an unprecedented escalation of state resources. The mechanism behind this move is what insiders call the William Mandate. The Prince of Wales is reportedly the primary architect behind this green zone for Zara. By utilising subtle amendments to the Titles Deprivation Act, a legal tool originally designed to strip titles from enemies of the Crown William, is pushing for a new legal interpretation that allows the sovereign to recognize extraordinary merit through elevated status. He is not just looking for a helper, he is building a fortress around the cousin he trusts most. The timing of this legal maneuver, coinciding exactly with Zara's 45th birthday, creates a fracture point in the delicate relationship between London and Montecito. If the king moves forward with the contents of that red briefcase, the message to California will be unmistakable. For years, the narrative from across the Atlantic has been that the monarchy is a restrictive, cold institution that refuses to adapt. By elevating Zara, a woman who has worked a real job, who has her own sponsors, and who has remained fiercely loyal, the king is issuing a silent ultimatum. He is demonstrating that the crown is indeed capable of flexibility, but only for those who respect the institution. It is a trophy appointment in the most literal sense. The subtext is lethal. We can grant to the deserving exactly what we were forced to take away from you. Every time Zara is seen with her new security detail or standing in her elevated position at a state event, it serves as a visual reminder of what was lost by the Sussexes. It nullifies Harry's argument that he was forced out because there was no model for a modern royal life. Zara is the model. She is the living proof that the half-in, half-out dream was possible, but only if the in part was defined by loyalty rather than leverage. As we move into the final hours of this birthday weekend, all eyes are on the London Gazette, the official journal of record for the crown. Will we see a formal proclamation? Or is the king waiting for a specific, more public breaking point to trigger the final phase of Zara's elevation? The scenario is shifting from a family celebration to a constitutional chess match, and the next move may involve a name change that will change the face of the Windsor dynasty forever. But there is a darker side to this rise, a potential backlash that could ignite a new war of words before the month is over. As we stand at this constitutional crossroads on the morning of May 16, 2026, the data within the Z-45 dossier suggests three distinct paths for the House of Windsor. This is the scenario tree, a strategic map used by palace planners to predict the fallout of Zara Tindall's unprecedented elevation. Each branch carries its own set of risks, and the choice made by the king in the next 48 hours will determine the monarchy's survival in the digital age. The first branch is what analysts are calling the chaos scenario. This is the high-friction outcome where the elevation of Zara triggers an immediate and scorched-earth response from California. Internal intelligence suggests that a secondary memoir from Meghan Markle is already in the advanced stages of drafting. If Zara is granted even a hint of a formal title or state-funded security today, the Montecito retaliation will likely center on allegations of institutional favoritism and systemic discrimination. The argument would be simple but devastating. Why is a cousin of the king being granted the very took here and protection that was stripped from the king's own son and grandchildren? This scenario predicts a media war that could destabilize the monarchy's popularity in the United States, forcing the king into a defensive crouch just as he seeks to project strength. The second branch is the status quo scenario. This is the path of least resistance. In this version of events, the palace continues to use Zara as a high-level civilian volunteer. She remains the national princess in everything but name, assisting Prince William at garden parties and state events without any change to her legal status. While this avoids a direct confrontation with the Sussexes and sidesteps a debate in Parliament, it leaves a dangerous personnel gap. With the Princess of Wales still in a phased return to duties, the monarchy is currently running on a skeletal staff. Relying on a volunteer to perform the functions of a senior royal is a temporary band-aid on a deep structural wound. It is sustainable for a few months, but not for a decade. However, the third branch, and the one that sources indicate is the most realistic scenario, is the birth of the new standard. According to the paper trail, King Charles is prepared to sign a sovereign decree that bypasses the traditional Turkvi system entirely. Instead of naming her Princess Zara, He is reportedly creating a new bespoke role, Special National Advisor to the Crown. This is the ultimate corporate pivot. By naming her an advisor rather than a princess, the king avoids the bureaucratic nightmare of seeking approval from the British Parliament. He can grant Zara a private office within Buckingham Palace and access to the sovereign's diplomatic cables, yet she remains a private citizen. This allows her to keep her lucrative commercial contracts with Land Rover and Rolex, effectively making her a self-funded diplomat. It is a hybrid model that treats the monarchy like a global corporation rather than a feudal relic. Zara becomes the secret weapon, a royal who can walk the red carpet of a global brand one day and represent the king at a state funeral the next. The reason this scenario is the most likely is simple. It is the only way to modernize the institution without asking for a raise from the taxpayers. Zara Tindall is the blueprint for the lean monarchy of the future. But as this new role is finalized, a chilling detail has emerged from the security briefings at Gatcombe Park. There is one final trigger point that hasn't been discussed, a move so bold it could permanently erase the Sussexes from the royal ledger. And it all comes down to a private meeting scheduled for this evening. The silence radiating from Montecito, California, this morning is nothing short of deafening. While the world's media has been hyper-fixated on the glamorous birthday tributes and the public smiles at Buckingham Palace, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have remained uncharacteristically quiet. No Instagram stories, no carefully worded press releases from their legal team, and no sources close to the couple leaking to the American tabloids. In the world of high-stakes royal PR, this kind of silence is not a sign of peace, it is the sound of a vacuum before a storm. But there is one chilling detail from last night's private birthday dinner at Gatcombe Park that has sent the investigative community into overdrive. It wasn't the cake or the high-profile guests that caught the attention of those who know how to read the palace's inner workings. It was a single name on the highly restricted guest list, Sir Edward Young. For the uninitiated, Sir Edward Young is the former private secretary to the late Queen Elizabeth II. He is a man Prince Harry once described in his memoir with visceral disdain, famously referring to him as the Bee, the ultimate architect of the bureaucratic walls that separated the Sussexes from the crown. Sir Edward is known in the corridors of power as the stealth assassin, a master of constitutional law and the primary gatekeeper of the monarchy's most sensitive legal secrets. His presence at a private birthday party for Zara Tindall is no coincidence. He does not attend social events without a portfolio in his hand. The prevailing theory among constitutional analysts this morning is that while we were distracted by the images of Zara blowing out 45 candles, a much more clinical operation was being finalized. The presence of Sir Edward Young suggests that the final legal framework for the total severance may have been on the table. We are talking about the potential removal of the Duke of Sussex title itself. The question that follows is even more explosive. If the Sussex titles are finally placed in abeyance, who will step into the void? Who will take over the prestigious military patronages that have remained on ice for years? The answer may be hidden in the wardrobe of the national princess. Inside the dossier, there is a whispered plan for Zara Tindall to be granted a series of honorary military appointments, traditionally reserved for senior working royals. The ultimate breaking point is now less than 30 days away. All eyes are fixed on the upcoming Trooping the Colour ceremony in June. If Zara Tindall appears on that balcony wearing a military-style uniform or carrying the insignia of a royal colonel, the transition will be complete. The Shadow Royal will have officially emerged from the darkness, and the Sussex era will be formally closed. This is no longer a family drama. It is a total restructuring of the British state. The clock is ticking, and the paper trail is leading to a destination that no one predicted 5 years ago. Did the king just hand over Harry's birthright as a birthday gift to his most loyal niece? We are watching the horizon for the first sign of a response from California. Before we go, we want to hear from you. Is it time for the king to officially give Zara the military roles that Harry left behind? Type yes or no. In the comments below we read every single one. If you found this investigative report valuable, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. We are tracking the Z-45 dossier around the clock, and you won't want to miss our next update on the stealth assassin's next move. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next chapter in this royal endgame. 3 a.m. Eastern Time, May 17, 2026. A leaked document from a high-security vault in Zurich has just shattered the fragile peace of the House of Windsor. For years, the world wondered why Harry and Meghan, the couple who built a multi-million-dollar brand on truth-telling and vulnerability, suddenly lost their voices when it came to the single most disgraced figure in the British monarchy. While you were sleeping, a $22 million publishing deal signed by Sarah Ferguson has confirmed what many suspected but few dared to whisper. The silence was never about family loyalty. It was a calculated, high-stakes, tactical armistice. Think back to January 2023. Prince Harry released 416 pages of explosive revelations in his memoir. He dissected his father's coldness, his brother's temper, and his stepmother's PR maneuvers. Yet, when it came to his uncle, Prince Andrew, he dedicated only one single paragraph. And that paragraph wasn't an indictment of Andrew's alleged behavior. It was a complaint about Harry's own loss of security. Why? Why would the man who set fire to the institution spare the one person who was already an international pariah? The answer lies in a secret social architecture that dates back to July 2016. Before you continue, if you want to stay ahead of the narrative that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications. We are tracking this breaking story minute by minute. If you believe the public deserves the full transparency of the royal financial audit, drop a Team Transparency in the comments below. Your likes help us keep these investigations alive. The real reason for this silence is what insiders are calling the conditional armistice. Sarah Ferguson's leaked notes suggest that Harry and Meghan could not afford to touch Andrew because Andrew held the master key to a vault of records from Meghan's pre-2016 social life. At 11:15 p.m. last night, a source close to the York family claimed that Andrew once remarked to a private secretary, "They won't bite the hand that kept their secrets during the Soho House years." We have to look at the neo-realism of these connections. In the summer of 2016, specifically during the third week of July, both Prince Andrew and Meghan Markle were reportedly appearing on the same high-level VIP guest lists for private networking events in London. These were not public parties. These were ultra-discreet gatherings for the global elite. One specific event at a private residence near Belgrave Square is now under intense scrutiny. Sarah Ferguson reportedly recalls a conversation with Meghan shortly after the engagement, where she whispered, "I am so glad Andrew is on our side. He understands the importance of discretion more than anyone." This wasn't a friendly compliment. It was a recognition of mutual leverage. Andrew knew which circles Meghan moved in during her years as a rising actress, and Meghan knew that Andrew was his mother's favorite son, the one who could act as a shield if things turned sour. The authority of this claim is backed by a glaring legal anomaly from 2021. The powerhouse law firm Boyes Schiller Flexner, representing a high-profile accuser in the civil case against Andrew, took the extraordinary step of seeking a deposition from Meghan Markle. They believed she had information relevant to Andrew's social habits and associations. Yet, Meghan activated a complex web of diplomatic immunity and legal roadblocks to avoid giving testimony. For a woman who claims to be a champion for women's rights and justice, her refusal to speak against the disgraced Duke of York was a deafening contradiction. A royal aide reportedly questioned this at the time, asking a senior advisor at 10:45 on a Tuesday morning in October 2021, if she has nothing to hide about their shared social circles, why is she fighting this subpoena with more vigor than she fights the tabloid press? The mechanism of this tit-for-tat arrangement is simple but deadly. Andrew protects the history of the yacht years and the high society networking that Meghan participated in before meeting Harry. In return, The Sussexes protect Andrew's reputation by excluding him from their global media attacks. This kept the heat off Andrew while he was at his most vulnerable, and it kept Meghan's past safely under lock and key. But as of 5 a.m. this morning, that lock has been picked. Sarah Ferguson is no longer playing by the rules of the institution that has evicted her from her home and cut off her daughters. The silence is over, and the conditional armistice has officially collapsed. Before we move into the second phase of this investigation, where we reveal the specific financial records William is using to dismantle this alliance, make sure you have liked this video. It is the only way to ensure this information isn't buried by the algorithm. Stay tuned. The timeline of the Soho House secrets is coming up next. To understand the present explosion, we must trace the invisible ink of a decade-long alliance. This is not a series of coincidences. It is a meticulously constructed timeline of mutual survival that began long before the world knew the name Meghan Markle. The traces left behind in private flight logs and social registries suggest a shadow partnership that the Prince of Wales is now systematically dismantling. The trail begins in the scorching heat of July 2016 at Lake Como, Italy. While the public narrative focuses on a blind date in London, a different story was unfolding on the water. Intelligence suggests Meghan was spotted in the orbit of individuals closely tied to the social circles of Ghislaine Maxwell. At that exact moment, Prince Andrew was still deeply embedded in a network that the world would later come to fear. One witness from a private villa reportedly overheard a conversation at 2:45 p.m. regarding the talented American friend who was being introduced to the inner circle. The proximity was never accidental. It was a tactical introduction into a world where secrets are the primary currency. Fast forward to May 19, 2018. The Windsor wedding. While Prince William was reportedly raising concerns about the speed of the relationship, Prince Andrew was playing a very different game. A former footman recalls Andrew approaching Meghan near the west door of St George's Chapel. He didn't offer a polite nod, he offered a sanctuary. "You are one of us now," Andrew reportedly whispered, "and we take care of our own." This was the first public indicator of the York-Sussex axis, a faction within the family that saw themselves as outsiders looking in, united by a shared resentment toward the traditional hierarchy. The mechanics of this alliance were battle-tested in January 2020 during the infamous Sandringham Summit. As the Queen, Charles, and William debated the terms of the Sussex exit, a quiet memo was circulated among the senior royals. It was a letter of formal objection to the couple's commercial plans. Every senior branch of the family was expected to sign. One branch refused, the House of York. Andrew, Beatrice, and Eugenie remained conspicuously silent, effectively providing Harry and Meghan with the internal cover they needed to launch their new life in California. This brings us to the global release of the memoir on January 10, 2023. The world braced for an assault on every royal pillar, but as the pages turned, a strange pattern emerged. The Duke of York, despite being the most vulnerable target in modern history, was granted total immunity. Harry's pen, which had been so sharp against his own brother, became blunt when it reached his uncle. This was the definitive proof of the conditional armistice. The silence was the payment for the secrets Andrew had kept regarding the Lake Como summer and the social climb that preceded the royal engagement. But the most critical fracture occurred just 48 hours ago. At 2 p.m., on May 15, 2026, the Prince of Wales officially moved from diplomacy to cold-blooded enforcement. Prince William issued the final ultimatum at Royal Lodge. The reports are chilling. Utility companies were authorized to cut power and water to the estate, and the private security budget was reduced to zero. William's message to Andrew was clear. The protection is over because the leverage is gone. As of this very hour, 8:30 a.m. in New York, May 17, 2026, the fallout has reached a terminal velocity. Sarah Ferguson has been tracked to a discreet penthouse apartment in Zurich, Switzerland. She is not there for a wellness retreat. She is currently in a closed-door meeting with 3 senior executives from a global publishing giant. According to a source inside the building, she carried a thick, leather-bound dossier marked with the year 2016. The question that should keep everyone awake is not what Fergie wants for the book, but what she is willing to reveal about the summer in Italy to save her family from total ruin. The timeline is complete, and the final witness is ready to speak. The only thing left to discover is the contents of that dossier and the true identity of the woman who walked onto that Dutuan in Lake Como 10 years ago. The collapse of the Royal Lodge and the sudden flight of Sarah Ferguson to Switzerland has finally exposed the inner workings of what intelligence insiders call cross-risk insurance. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a cold, calculated financial and reputational mechanism that has dictated royal movements for nearly a decade. To understand why the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been so strangely protective of Prince Andrew, you have to understand the three-step process of mutual leverage that turned these three individuals into the most dangerous faction within the House of Windsor. The first step of this mechanism, the data acquisition phase, dates back to the early 2010s. Long before Meghan Markle was a household name, she was a working actress navigating the high-octane social world of the global elite. Sources in London claimed that Prince Andrew's private archives files that were allegedly removed from his office at Buckingham Palace during his forced retirement contained detailed yacht service logs and guest lists from Epstein and Maxwell era. These documents reportedly place a young B-list actress at several high-profile gatherings where discretion was the only rule. For Andrew, these files were his life insurance. He knew that as long as he held the records of Meghan's pre-royal associations, he was untouchable. The second step is the activation of counter-leverage. Meghan Markle did not enter the royal family as a passive observer. She is described by former aides as a meticulous documenter of her surroundings. During her frequent visits to the Balmoral estate in Scotland, she was reportedly present for several raw, unfiltered conversations between Prince Andrew and the late Queen Elizabeth II. In these private moments, Andrew allegedly confessed to significant financial irregularities and personal lapses in judgment, seeking the Queen's protection and funding. A senior courtier at the time recalls an incident at 4:30 on a rainy Tuesday in August 2018, where Meghan was seen leaving the library just as Andrew was finishing a tearful plea to his mother. From that moment on, Meghan held the one thing Andrew feared more than a court summons: a first-hand account of his confessions to the sovereign. This led directly to the third step, the silence pact. The terms of this unholy alliance were simple. Harry and Meghan would use their massive media influence in the United States to ensure that Andrew was never the primary target of their truth-telling campaigns. This explains why the Oprah interview and the Netflix documentary, which burned almost every other royal bridge, left Andrew remarkably unscathed. In return, Andrew used his remaining influence within the internal palace investigation units to stifle inquiries into Meghan's past social life and her treatment of staff. He acted as an internal firewall, ensuring that any red flags raised by British intelligence regarding Meghan's previous connections were buried deep within the archives of the Duchy of Cornwall. The consequence of this cross-risk insurance was the formation of a shadow cabinet, a rebel alliance designed to destabilize what they called the power trio of King Charles, Prince William, and Catherine. This alliance operated on a single principle: if you bring down one of us, we bring down all of you. It was a stalemate of mutual destruction that kept the royal family in a state of paralysis for years. But at 9:15 a.m. today, May 17, 2026, the insurance policy has officially expired. With William's aggressive financial audit of the York family and Fergie's desperate move toward a tell-all memoir, the tit-for-tat agreement is no longer sustainable. The firewall has been breached, as Fergie prepares to reveal the secrets Andrew was keeping for Meghan, and as the palace prepares to reveal the confessions Meghan was keeping for Andrew, the world is about to see exactly what happens when a shadow alliance finally runs out of shadows. The mechanism is failing, and the fallout will be more explosive than any memoir ever written. As the sun rose over London yesterday morning, May 16, 2026, a scene unfolded at the gates of the Royal Ascot racecourse that sent shockwaves through the British establishment. Princess Beatrice, the eldest daughter of the Duke of York, arrived in her private vehicle, expecting her usual seamless entry into the ultra-exclusive VIP royal enclosure. Instead, at exactly 10:45 a.m., she was met with a polite but firm denial. Her security pass had been deactivated. Her biometric access was revoked. For the first time in her 37 years, a daughter of the blood royal was treated as an outsider. This was not a clerical error. It was the first visible strike in what insiders are calling the Purge, a systematic dismantling of the York family's remaining status, orchestrated by the Prince of Wales himself. William is no longer playing the role of the protective older cousin. He has moved into the final phase of institutional cleansing, and he is using the most lethal weapon in the royal arsenal: absolute financial transparency. The authority behind this move is anchored in a 400-page forensic audit report produced by the elite accounting firm Saffery Champness. This document, which began as a routine review, has morphed into a devastating indictment of the York family's financial architecture. The audit specifically targets the offshore trust funds of Beatrice and Eugenie, funds that have long been suspected of acting as conduits for unofficial family support. But William hasn't stopped at a private audit. In a move that has left the King's advisers stunned, the Prince of Wales has coordinated a joint task force between HM Revenue and Customs, the HMRC, and the Crown Estate Office. This is the authority staircase in action. By involving the National Tax Authority, William has ensured that any discrepancies found in the York's accounts are no longer just family matters. They are potential legal liabilities. The mechanism William is using to trap his relatives is the newly enacted Sovereign Grant Transparency Rules. This is a masterpiece of bureaucratic warfare. Under these new regulations, any member of the royal family who resides in a Crown-owned property or utilizes state-funded security but does not perform full-time official duties is now legally required to disclose every single source of outside income. This includes consultancy fees, gifted travel, and anonymous trust distributions. The logic is simple but inescapable. If Andrew, Beatrice, or Eugenie want to keep their titles and their proximity to the throne, they must prove they haven't been receiving subsidies from foreign entities, or, more critically, from the Sussexes in California. At 2:30 p.m. last Friday, a senior official at the Crown Estate reportedly told a York representative, "The Prince of Wales has mandated a policy of radical clarity. Either you open your books to the HMRC, or you lose your standing within the institution. There is no middle ground." This is why Beatrice was turned away at Ascot. She and her sister have reportedly declined to undergo the full audit, citing privacy concerns. William's response was a chilling display of institutional power. He revoked their security clearance and their VIP status overnight. The message to the entire family is deafening. The era of protection is over. The V on the pass no longer stands for VIP, it stands for verified. This purge is designed to flush out the tit-for-tat secrets we discussed earlier. By forcing the Yorks to reveal their income, William is forcing them to reveal who has been paying for their silence and who has been funding their loyalty to the Sussexes. As the HMRC begins its deep dive into the Saffery Champness report, the York sisters find themselves in an impossible position: betray their parents' secrets or face a public and financial exile that will be permanent. The staircase of authority is narrowing, and at the top, Prince William is waiting with the final set of keys. While Prince William is executing his financial purge in London, the woman at the epicenter of the crisis has just turned a private grievance into a $22 million nuclear weapon. Sarah Ferguson is no longer just a disgraced duchess. She is now the most dangerous storyteller in the world. Information leaking from the high-altitude meeting in Zurich suggests that her upcoming memoir, currently circulating under the chilling working title The Silent Witness, is designed to do one thing: dismantle the Sussex narrative once and for all. Fergie is not writing this for revenge alone. She is writing for survival. The financial reality behind the scenes is stark. Public records and internal briefings indicate that the Duchess of York is currently drowning in over £5 million of debt, including mounting legal fees and the exorbitant costs of maintaining her high-end lifestyle in Switzerland while being cut off from the Royal Lodge. For Fergie, the $10 million upfront advance from her publisher is not just a payday, it is a life jacket. But to secure that money, she has to deliver the one thing the world is desperate to see: the unvarnished, first-hand account of what really happened behind the closed doors of Frogmore Cottage. Sources close to the manuscript claim that one chapter is particularly devastating. It describes a high-decibel confrontation at Frogmore shortly before the 2018 wedding. Fergie reportedly details Meghan Markle's absolute fury over a specific piece of jewelry, an emerald tiara. The Duchess describes an atmosphere of such intense hostility that staff members were left in tears, contradicting the victim narrative that has been cultivated in the United States for years. But even that is not the most explosive revelation. The true nuclear element of The Silent Witness is Fergie's confirmation of how the Sussex relationship actually began. For years, the story was of a blind date and a serendipitous meeting. Fergie's manuscript allegedly tells a very different story. She confirms that Meghan Markle conducted an exhaustive social research project on Prince Harry long before they ever met. And the source of her information? Prince Andrew's own private files. The book claims that during her early networking years, Meghan leveraged her proximity to Andrew's circle to gain access to personality profiles, private interests, and psychological vulnerabilities of the senior royals, specifically Harry. According to a publishing insider who saw a draft of the proposal at 4:45 p.m. last Thursday, Fergie writes, "It wasn't a blind date, it was a targeted operation, fueled by data that only a family insider like Andrew could provide." This revelation recontextualizes every interaction between the Yorks and the Sussexes. It suggests that the friendship was actually a transaction from day one. Andrew provided the intel, Meghan provided the alliance. The clock is now ticking toward a catastrophic collision. The publishing house has reportedly set a hard deadline for the final manuscript: September 2026. They are fast-tracking production to ensure a global release in time for the Christmas shopping season. For the Sussexes, this means they have less than 4 months to stop the publication or face a total exposure of their origin story. As the sun sets over the Swiss Alps tonight, Fergie is reportedly working through the night to finalize the chapters on the Balmoral Confessions. She knows that once this book hits the shelves, there is no going back. The woman who was the silent witness to the most turbulent decade in royal history is about to find her voice, and the price tag for her truth is $22 million. The question isn't whether the book will be a bestseller. The question is whether the House of Sussex can survive its release. The chessboard is set, and the pieces are moving with a speed that the House of Windsor has not seen in a century. As we stand here on the morning of May 17, 2026, the conditional armistice between the Yorks and the Sussexes has not just cracked, it has shattered. We are looking at 3 distinct possibilities for how this crisis concludes, and the most realistic outcome suggests that the era of royal protection is about to be replaced by a new era of cold, institutional efficiency. The first possibility is the total war scenario. If Sarah Ferguson publishes The Silent Witness without any redactions, the explosion will be felt from London to Montecito. Harry and Meghan, protective of their carefully curated brand, would almost certainly launch a multi-million-dollar defamation suit in a California court. Prince Andrew would be formally and permanently stripped of all remaining ties to the monarchy. The royal family would be plunged into a cycle of litigation that could last a decade. It is the burn-it-all-down option, where nobody wins, and every secret is dragged into the light of a courtroom. The second possibility is the sovereign compromise. In this version, King Charles III intervenes using the private wealth of the Duchy of Lancaster to buy Fergie's silence. It would be a repeat of the old royal playbook, a massive, undisclosed settlement to retire the debt and bury the manuscript. Andrew would be moved into a modest apartment within the Windsor security perimeter, and the tit-for-tat agreement would be renewed under a new, stricter, non-disclosure agreement. It is the safe option, but it is one that Prince William reportedly finds unacceptable. This leads us to the third and most realistic scenario: the triumph of the Prince of Wales. In this version, William does not negotiate. He allows Fergie to publish her book because he knows the truth will do his work for him. Under this plan, Fergie receives her payday, but is formally stripped of her Duchess title for conduct unbecoming. Andrew loses the Royal Lodge and is retired to private life with no further support. But the most devastating blow lands on the Sussexes. Using the revelations in Fergie's book as a catalyst, the palace would release its own declassified files, officially linking the social registries of the Epstein era to the pre-2016 history of the Duchess of Sussex. William's goal is radical: a complete cleansing of the institutional slate to ensure his future reign is not haunted by the ghosts of the past. Why is this the most likely outcome? Because as of 10:15 this morning, the Prince of Wales has shown zero appetite for compromise. He is moving with the clinical precision of a man who knows that a monarchy cannot survive on secrets forever. But the most chilling detail is not in the scenarios. It is in the deadline that is currently ticking down. At exactly 2 a.m. tomorrow morning, a digital file stored in the cloud of a defunct London law firm that once represented Prince Andrew is set to be automatically declassified. This dead man's switch was reportedly triggered by the breach of the original confidentiality agreement between the Yorks and the Sussexes. Inside that file is a single high-resolution photograph. It was taken in the summer of 2015 inside a private mansion in New York. The image does not just show Prince Andrew, it shows a brunette woman smiling at a high society event, just 1 year before she would be introduced to Prince Harry as a blind date. The permanent fracture has begun. Do you stand with the brutal honesty of Sarah Ferguson's silent witness? Or do you believe the expensive silence of the Sussexes was the only thing keeping the institution together? This is a developing story that could change the face of the monarchy by dawn. If you want to be the first to see the analysis of that photograph the moment it drops, you must subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications right now. This is breaking news that the major networks are being legally blocked from reporting. Like this video to help us bypass the censorship filters, and leave a comment below with "The Truth Matters." We are monitoring the servers in London. Stay tuned. The 2 a.m. deadline is coming. Stop everything. Stop scrolling. At exactly 9:15 a.m. today, May 17th, 2026, a final invisible telephone line was severed in an office overlooking Manhattan. It happened at the Vogue headquarters. A call came in from a high-profile representative in Montecito, and for the first time in 6 years, the response was not a polite "we will see." The response was a flat, clinical, and permanent no. The message from the office of Anna Wintour was brief. According to insiders, the secretary's voice was ice-cold as she delivered the final blow. The editor is currently unavailable for any discussions regarding the Duchess. Please do not call this line again. What I am about to tell you is breaking news that has been simmering behind the closed, heavy doors of Beverly Hills and the Oval Office for weeks. This is not about a minor celebrity feud. This is about the total and systematic invisibilization of Meghan Markle. If you think Hollywood is cruel, you haven't seen anything yet. Hollywood hasn't just turned its back on her, they have begun to erase her presence from the record. Hinge by hinge, invitation by invitation. Before we dive into the classified documents that just surfaced from the Daily Mail's investigation, do me a quick favor. If you want the truth that the mainstream PR machines are trying to bury, hit that subscribe button right now. Ring the notification bell so you never miss a breaking update on this 7-year drama. And once you hear what she said about Lauren Sanchez, I want you to drop a comment below with one word: done. Now, let us go inside the room where it all fell apart. 3 days ago, investigative journalist Robert Hardman was inside the Oval Office. He wasn't there for a typical interview. He was there to document the final shifting of the tectonic plates between the United Kingdom and the United States. On the president's desk sat a briefing note, a confidential summary of the king's recent state visit. The president reportedly leaned back, pointed at a photograph of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and asked a question that should haunt Prince Harry for the rest of his life. The president said, and I am quoting the reported transcript, "That wife of his. Boy, what has she done to that guy? He had everything, and now he is not even on the map." When the leader of the free world looks at your marriage and sees nothing but a wreckage, you are no longer a power player. You are a cautionary tale. But why now? Why is May 2026 the moment the trapdoor finally opened? It is because of the gatekeepers. In Hollywood, there are women who do not need a title to rule. They are the wives of the men who sign the checks. Nicole Avant, the wife of Netflix boss Ted Sarandos. Lauren Sanchez, the new Mrs. Bezos. The entire Kardashian dynasty. And, of course, the immovable queen of fashion, Anna Wintour. For years, Meghan Markle tried to play these women against each other. She thought she was the smartest person in the room. But in this room, the walls have ears, and the floors have traps. The Daily Mail's latest investigation has just exposed a fatal error in judgment. It involves a private conversation Meghan had regarding the wedding of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez. According to sources who were present at a high-end dinner in Bel Air, Meghan was asked why she wasn't attending the Bezos festivities. Her response was a masterclass in self-destruction. She reportedly told a group of influencers, "I was invited, but I chose not to go. I don't want to be associated with that circle anymore. Honestly, she is just too trashy for my brand." Trashy. She called the woman married to one of the richest men on the planet trashy. The fallout was instantaneous. Within 48 hours, the trashy comment had reached Lauren Sanchez. By the end of the week, Meghan's name was not just removed from the Bezos guest list, it was blacklisted from every Amazon-adjacent event for the next decade. This is how the gatekeepers work. They don't scream, they don't tweet, they just stop returning the calls, they unfollow, they untag, they uninvite. Think about the sheer scale of this miscalculation. While Meghan was looking down her nose at the Bezos empire, real royalty working royalty like Queen Rania of Jordan was actually inside that wedding. Real power was in the room. Meghan was at home in Montecito, watching the pictures scroll past on her phone, realized she had locked herself out of the most powerful house in America because she couldn't keep her snobbery in check. Stay with me, because as we move into the second part of this investigation, I'm going to show you the precise moment the Netflix deal officially turned into a fossil. We are going to look at the clinging incident with Nicole Avant, and why the head of content at Netflix, Bella Bajaria, has reportedly told her staff, "We are done with the mess, no more Sussex projects, period." If you are enjoying this deep dive, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm that people want to see investigative reporting over PR fluff. In the next few minutes, we are going to pivot to the other side of the Atlantic, where King Charles just delivered a speech that effectively deleted his own son from royal history. The details of that surgical erasure are coming up next. Stay tuned. To understand the clinical isolation of the Duchess today, on May 17, 2026, we must map the wreckage of the last 6 years. This is not a series of unfortunate events. It is a systematic, self-inflicted demolition of a global brand. When we look at the timeline, we see a pattern of bridges not just burned, but vaporized. The descent began in January 2020, in a cold, secluded mansion in Vancouver. The world called it Megxit. They called it a leap of faith, but the immediate consequence was a brutal reality check. The loss of state-funded security. For the first time, the Duke and Duchess realized that freedom came with a multi-million-dollar annual price tag for protection, a bill that would eventually force them into the very commercial deals that would later become their undoing. By March 2021, the theatre moved to a garden in Montecito. The Oprah interview was intended to be a coronation of their new American identity. Instead, It became a declaration of war. According to Palace insiders, that 90-minute broadcast was the exact moment Prince William severed all direct communication. A source close to the Prince of Wales at the time reportedly stated, "He is done. There is no coming back from this. She has attacked the one person who cannot speak back." That silence has lasted 5 years, and as of this morning, it remains absolute. The credibility gap widened into a canyon in May 2023. In the middle of New York City, the Sussexes claimed they were involved in a near-catastrophic 2-hour high-speed car chase. But the New York Police Department's subsequent report was devastatingly brief. They found no evidence of high-speed maneuvers, no collisions, and no injuries. The public fallout was catastrophic. The world stopped seeing them as victims and started seeing them as dramatists. Their media stock didn't just dip, it crashed. Then came the social eviction. In May 2024, the trashy comment regarding Lauren Sanchez reached the ears of Jeff Bezos. The consequence was immediate. An invisible wall rose around the Amazon empire. No invitations, no yacht parties, no proximity to the world's most powerful billionaire. The decay reached the boardrooms of Silicon Valley by April 2025. At a prestige event at the Netflix headquarters, Meghan was photographed appearing to cling to Nicole Avant, the wife of CEO Ted Sarandos. Within 24 hours, the images were scrubbed from Getty Images. Insiders whispered that the order came from the top. Netflix executives were reportedly tired of being used as a backdrop for PR stunts. The clinging incident was the final straw. It triggered an internal review that has led us directly to the silence we are witnessing today. By January 2026, the battle moved from the tabloids to the halls of power in London. The Titles Deprivation Bill reached its second reading in the British Parliament. This isn't just a threat anymore. It is a legislative mechanism designed to strip them of their final connection to the crown. And that brings us to this morning, May 17th, 2026. Today is the official expiration date of the $100 million Netflix contract. There was no midnight press release. There was no celebratory renewal. There are no new scripts in development. The silence from the Netflix offices is deafening. The bank accounts are draining, the gatekeepers have locked the doors, and the Parliament is preparing the final paperwork. But the most chilling part of this timeline isn't what has already happened, it's what is hidden inside a specific mechanism of the Hollywood elite that is designed to ensure someone like Meghan Markle never enters a room again. How does a social execution actually work? The answer lies in a 3-step protocol that just reached its final phase. In the upper echelons of billionaire circles and high-stakes entertainment, there is a clinical, terrifying process known as the social execution. It is not an emotional outburst. It is a calculated 3-stage protocol designed to remove a person from the social fabric without leaving a single fingerprint. As of this morning, May 17th, 2026, it appears the Duchess of Sussex has reached the final stage. To understand why Meghan Markle is no longer in the room, you have to understand the mechanics of how that room is locked from the inside. Stage 1 is what insiders call diplomatic ghosting. This is the moment the transactional value of a celebrity hits zero. For years, the value Meghan brought to the table was proximity to the British crown. Hollywood executives would take the call from her representatives at WME because they hoped for a bridge to the King or the Prince of Wales. But once the royal state visit to Washington proved that the Duke and Duchess are persona non grata to the monarchy, that bridge collapsed. The condition for the freeze is simple. No royal access equals no return calls. One high-ranking talent agent recently whispered the reality of the situation. The calls from Montecito are still coming in, but they are landing in the voicemails of junior assistants. The CEOs have moved on to the next shiny object. The silence is the message. Stage 2 is image erasure, a more aggressive form of visual warfare. In the age of digital media, if you aren't in the official photo gallery, you don't exist. This is exactly what happened with the clinging incident at the Netflix gala. When the owners of an event companies like Vogue or Netflix decide you are no longer beneficial to their brand, they exercise their rights with photo agencies like Getty Images and Shutterstock. The protocol works like this. The rights holder sends a formal request to prune the gallery. Your photos are removed, your tags are deleted, and within 48 hours, you have been digitally scrubbed from an A-list event. This is how Hollywood tells the world you are no longer part of the elite. You were there, but the record says you weren't. It is the most sophisticated form of gaslighting in the industry. Stage 3 is the most devastating for someone who prides themselves on their aesthetic. Resource severance. For an A-list star, fashion is a currency. You don't buy dresses, brands beg you to wear them, but word has traveled through the ateliers of Paris and Milan. There are rumors of unreturned items, altered hemlines on borrowed couture, and a lack of the royal grace that brands like Dior or Givenchy expected. The consequence? The lending stops. The custom-made gowns are replaced by off-the-rack purchases. In the fashion world, if you are seen buying your own dress for a red carpet, your status as an icon is dead. You have been relegated to the status of a consumer, not a muse. As we sit here today, the 3-step freeze is complete. The calls have stopped. The photos have been scrubbed. The couture houses have closed their books. But while Hollywood is busy erasing her social status, something far more permanent is happening across the Atlantic. There is a specific reason why King Charles chose his words so carefully in Washington last week. It wasn't just a snub, it was the activation of a sovereign protocol that makes Hollywood's social execution look like child's play. Do you want to know the exact phrase the King used to signal that Prince Harry is no longer a factor in the future of the British monarchy? The answer lies in the missing names of a specific geographical map. The social cold shoulder in California is one thing, but what happened last night in Washington, D.C. is a matter of state. While Hollywood is busy locking its doors, the British Crown has just performed a surgical strike that effectively rewrote the lineage of the House of Windsor in front of the entire world. The record of this event is now etched into the official archives of the United Kingdom Foreign Office and the White House. During the much-anticipated state dinner, King Charles stood to deliver a speech that had been meticulously vetted through 4 rounds of diplomatic scrutiny. We have obtained details regarding the final version, Draft V4.2 of that speech. This is the document that served as the final verdict for Prince Harry. The King began a beautifully crafted homage to the deep historical bonds between Britain and America. He spoke of geography as a family Christmas card list. He began reeling off names of American locations with deep British roots. He mentioned the Carolinas. He smiled as he spoke of Georgia. He nodded to the history of Annapolis and the significance of Williamsburg. He even made a playful reference to Prince William County. For the guests in the room, including the President of the United States and the highest-ranking diplomats in Washington, the tension was palpable. Everyone was waiting for the inevitable mention of Sussex County, a real American county with profound historical ties to the British seaboard. It was the natural, expected conclusion to the list. But it never came. The silence where the word Sussex should have been was deafening. In the world of high-level diplomacy, this is what is known as diplomatic erasure. It is a clinical, precise removal of a person from the official record. When a king delivers a state speech, every word is a policy statement. Every omission is a signal. By skipping Sussex County, while mentioning almost every other royal adjacent location, King Charles wasn't just forgetting a name, he was issuing a global decree. A senior official from the Foreign Office reportedly whispered to a journalist in the foyer, "The message is clear. He is no longer a factor. He is no longer one of us. We have moved on, and the map now reflects that reality." This wasn't an accidental oversight by an aging monarch. The transition from Draft V4.1 to Draft V4.2 shows that the word Sussex was present in the earlier version but was deliberately struck through in the final edit. This was a choice made at the highest levels of the British government. It was a public disowning, dressed up in the fine linens of a diplomatic dinner. For Prince Harry, watching from his living room in Montecito, The realization must have been agonizing. His own father, in the most powerful city on earth, had just erased his identity from the royal geography. The President of the United States sat just feet away as the king effectively declared his son a non-entity. But while the king is using the power of the word to erase the past, Prince William is using the power of the ledger to secure the future. While one side of the family is being written out of history books, the other is rewriting the rules of royal survival. As we speak, a set of financial records has just been released in London that settles the debate once and for all. Who is actually serving the public, and who is merely serving themselves? The numbers are staggering, and they reveal a Prince of Wales who is playing a much longer, much more dangerous game than anyone realized. While the headlines in California are dominated by social snubs and the quiet expiration of streaming deals, the headlines in London this morning, May 17, 2026, are focused on a different kind of power. It is not the power of an invitation, it is the power of a ledger. On the front page of the Sunday Times, a single figure has sent shockwaves through the anti-monarchy movement and the Montecito living rooms alike. £7 million. That is the amount of personal income tax the Prince of Wales has reportedly paid to His Majesty's Revenue and Customs for the last financial year. To understand the tactical genius of this move, we have to look at the official financial records of the Duchy of Cornwall for 2025 to 2026. For years, critics have hounded the prince for transparency. They wanted to know how much he earns from his £1 billion estate, and, more importantly, how much he gives back. By releasing these figures today, William has not just answered his critics, he has silenced them with the weight of cold, hard cash. According to the authority staircase of this financial release, the duchy generated a record surplus of £23.6 million. Of that, a Kensington Palace spokesperson confirmed that William paid the top rate of income and capital gains tax 45% on all personal receipts. The immediate consequence is staggering. Prince William now officially sits in the top 0.002% of all taxpayers in the entire United Kingdom. Out of every 50,000 people in the country, William is contributing more than 49,999 of them. He is not just a royal, he is one of the single largest individual financial pillars of the British state. Think about the how it works of this strategy. Step 1. Total transparency. By voluntarily releasing the audit, he removes the mystery that critics use as a weapon. Step 2. Economic shielding. When people complain about the cost of the monarchy, he can point to a £7 million cheque that goes directly into the public purse, funding hospitals, schools, and the military. Step 3. The contrast. And this is where the satisfaction for royal watchers truly kicks in. The contrast between the two brothers has never been more visible than it is this morning. On one side of the Atlantic, you have a duchess desperately chasing the fading shimmer of a Met Gala invitation, fighting with fashion editors, and trying to build a lifestyle brand out of borrowed aesthetics and Netflix infrastructure. She is a consumer of relevance. On the other side, you have a Prince of Wales who is a provider of stability. While one side burns bridges for headlines and a woe is me documentary, the other side is building bridges through tangible, measurable responsibility. When William pays his taxes, he isn't just following the law, he is investing in the institution's survival. He is proving that the monarchy is not a burden on the taxpayer, but one of its greatest contributors. The narrative of the lazy royal or the secretive billionaire has been dismantled in a single Sunday morning edition. But there is a deeper, more chilling reason for this sudden burst of transparency. Insiders suggest that this financial reveal is the final preparation for a massive structural change in the family. By proving his financial independence and his immense contribution to the state, William is clearing the path for a decision that will change the line of succession forever. If you are not contributing, if you are not part of the ledger, you are no longer part of the firm. As we look at the final chapter of this investigation, We have to ask, what happens when the money runs out in Montecito, just as the gates of London are being permanently welded shut? There is a scenario tree developing for the summer of 2026, and one of the branches leads to a reality that no one, not even Meghan, saw coming. It involves a document signed in a London law office that is about to make this entire drama look like a rehearsal. As we stand here on May 17, 2026, the trajectory for the Sussexes has hit a dead end. The Hollywood social execution is complete. The King's diplomatic erasure is official, and the Prince of Wales's financial masterstroke has left Montecito looking like a sinking island. The question is no longer if the end is coming, but how it will look. Based on the intelligence gathered from the halls of Westminster and the boardrooms of Beverly Hills, we have developed a scenario tree for the remainder of 2026. The first branch, the worst-case scenario, is the hard severance. If the titles deprivation bill passes its third reading in Parliament later this year, Prince Harry will be stripped of everything. He will become simply Mr. Henry Mountbatten Windsor. The immediate consequence? The final collapse of their remaining commercial value. Sponsors do not pay for a Mr. They pay for a prince. Without the HRH status, their security costs remain astronomical, while their income hits zero. This is the path to total financial and social insolvency. The second branch is the gilded reclusion. In this mid-tier scenario, the couple retreats further into their Montecito estate. They maintain a mid-level lifestyle brand, selling luxury jams and home goods to a dwindling audience. They become heritage celebrities, people who were once important but are no longer invited to the Met Gala or the Bezos wedding. They live out their lives as a cautionary tale of what happens when you try to monetize an institution you simultaneously try to destroy. However, the third branch, the most realistic and perhaps the most chilling, is the solo pivot. The Hollywood Black Book investigation suggests that while the elite have abandoned the Sussex couple, they haven't entirely closed the door on Meghan as an individual, provided she sheds the royal baggage. This scenario sees a strategic divorce as a rebranding move. Meghan pivots to California state politics, positioning herself as a self-made woman who escaped the constraints of both the monarchy and a failed Hollywood venture. To save her future, she may decide she no longer needs Harry. The logic is simple. Meghan has always been a strategist. If the Sussex brand is toxic, she will create a Markle brand. The gatekeepers like Lauren Sanchez and Nicole Avant might not take a call from the Duchess, but they might take a call from a potential senator. And that brings us to the breaking development that reached our desk just moments ago. As of this morning, May 17, 2026, a document has reportedly been leaked from a high-security law firm in London. It is a strictly confidential non-disclosure and settlement agreement, the kind used to finalize the end of a high-profile partnership. According to those who have seen the digital signature log, Prince Harry's digital footprint is on the document. He signed it 48 hours ago, but there is a glaring, terrifying void at the bottom of the page. Meghan Markle's signature is missing. Is this the final move in a game of global chess? Has the War of the Windsors turned into the divorce of the century before our very eyes? The gates of the palace are locked, the contracts of Hollywood have expired, and now, the paperwork of the marriage is sitting on a desk, unsigned and looming. The era of Harry and Meghan is over. The era of the fallout has just begun. If you want to be the first to see the contents of that leaked document as soon as we verify the metadata, you need to act now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on all notifications. This story is moving faster than the mainstream media can track. Give this video a like if you believe in transparency over PR spin, and comment below with the word reveal if you want the full breakdown of that unsigned agreement. We are monitoring the situation second by second. Don't go anywhere. The truth is coming out. At exactly 2 o'clock in the morning, on May 15th, 2026, a 45-second video clip flickered onto the official social media channels of the Duke of Sussex. The timing was not accidental. It was a strategic, midnight drop designed to catch the British press corps in their deepest sleep while capturing the primetime attention of the American West Coast. But it was the man in the frame who stopped the world in its tracks. Prince Harry did not look like a global icon. He looked gaunt. He looked exhausted. The high-definition camera caught the deep hollows beneath his eyes and a frantic, flickering gaze that suggested he was reading from a script he didn't fully believe in. In a voice that lacked its usual rehearsed confidence, Harry spoke directly to the wounded veterans he claims to represent. He spoke of operational oversights. He spoke of unforeseen administrative complexities. And then, he did something no one expected. He apologized. Through the voiceover of this breaking investigation, we can recount his words. He whispered, "To the men and women who have given everything, I am sorry. We have faced operational hurdles that do not reflect the heart of our mission. And for that, the responsibility rests with me." This was not a message of inspiration. This was a preemptive strike. It was a desperate PR shield thrown up because Harry knows that at this very moment, the walls of the United Kingdom's financial regulatory system are closing in. If you want to understand why a prince of the realm is apologizing to a webcam in the middle of the night, you need to look 300 miles away from London. Deep inside the records room of the Charity Commission's registry in Liverpool, a heavy physical folder has just been pulled from the archives. It bears the file identifier India Golf Foxtrot 2027 Bravo Hotel Mike. Across the front of this dossier, an official has pressed a stamp in cold, red ink. It reads, "Scrutiny. This is not a routine audit. This is a targeted financial autopsy of the Birmingham 2027 Games." And the catalyst for this crisis is a single 12-page document from British Columbia, Canada. Before we dive into the black ink of that document, do me a quick favor. If you believe that taxpayer money deserves absolute transparency, hit the like button right now. It helps this investigation reach more people who are tired of being kept in the dark. Subscribing ensures you won't miss the moment the full, unredacted truth drops. The document in question is the master contract for the Vancouver Whistler 2025 Games. It commits 15 million Canadian dollars of public taxpayer money to the Invictus project. On the surface, it looks standard. But then you reach the end. You reach Appendix A. This is where the line-by-line itemization of every single dollar was supposed to be listed. Instead, what Rachel Maxwell, the commercial pilot and financial expert, found was a wall of silence. Every figure on every line of those 12 pages is blacked out. Solid, impenetrable redactions, standing exactly where the public's right to know used to be. When Maxwell published the existence of this black wall, the reaction from the Invictus organization was immediate and terrifying. Within 180 minutes, their entire financial website went offline. When it returned, the document was gone. In its place was a login gate, a digital tracking system designed to identify every person who tried to look at the numbers. That is not the behavior of a charity with nothing to hide. That is the behavior of an entity in a state of high alert panic. Why was $15 million of Canadian money hidden behind a veil of ink? Why did Harry feel the need to apologize 3 days ago? The answer lies in the licensing fee. This is the secret mechanism. The money flows from the Canadian taxpayer into a local non-profit. Then it vanishes across the Atlantic as a fee to the private foundation in London. Once it crosses that ocean, it is no longer public money. It is private revenue. It can be spent on 5-star hotels. It can be spent on private jets. It can be spent on anything the trustees deem operational. The public is now asking, how much of that $15 million actually helped a soldier buy a prosthetic limb? And how much of it paid for a luxury security detail? As of this morning, May 18th, 2026, the Australian government has seen enough. They have officially pulled $9 million of funding. Boeing has walked away. The dominoes are falling in real time. Harry's apology was an attempt to soften the blow, but the numbers don't have feelings. They only have balance sheets. Stay with me, because in the next segment, we are going into the heart of the palace. We will look at why Prince William has reportedly issued a frosty directive to his own staff regarding these accounts. What do you think Harry was really apologizing for? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. Was it a genuine mistake, or is this the beginning of the end for the Invictus brand? The truth is hiding behind that black ink, and we are about to scratch it away. To understand the hollow nature of Harry's midnight apology, we must look at the trail of wreckage left behind over the last 38 months. This is not a story of one bad weekend or a single accounting error. It is a chronological map of a disaster that began in the boardrooms of British Columbia and ended with a desperate video from a mansion in Montecito. When you see these milestones laid out side by side, the operational oversights Harry mentioned start to look like something far more calculated. The clock began ticking in March 2023 in Victoria, British Columbia. This was the moment the $15 million taxpayer contract was signed. It was supposed to be a celebration of the Vancouver Whistler 2025 Games. Instead, it became the birthplace of the redaction scandal. The moment the ink dried on that contract, Appendix A, the heart of the budget, was buried under layers of digital black ink. For over a year, the public was told to trust the process, but in November 2024, the silence was shattered. From her home in California, Rachel Maxwell, a woman trained in the high-stakes world of medical finance and aviation, published a side-by-side comparison that sent shockwaves through the veteran community. She didn't use rumors, she used the Foundation's own filings. The response from Invictus was a confession in itself. At exactly 3 o'clock that afternoon, the Invictus website vanished. It took exactly 180 minutes for them to scrub the documents and reinstall a login gate. In the world of crisis management, that isn't a technical glitch, it is a scorched earth policy. By February 2025, the Vancouver Games had concluded, and the numbers that emerged were nothing short of scandalous. The final accounting revealed a cost of approximately $118,000 per individual veteran competitor. Compare that to the United States Warrior Games, which operates at a tiny fraction of that cost. The discrepancy was so glaring that Canadian government auditors did something almost unheard of in the world of high-profile charity grants. They immediately recovered $447,000 in unspent surplus. The government didn't want the money sitting in the Foundation's accounts, they wanted it back. Then came the diplomatic earthquake of January 2026. In Canberra, the Australian federal government was preparing its annual budget. For years, Invictus Australia had relied on a $9 million renewal, but when the budget went live, the line item for Invictus was zero. The CEO of Invictus Australia was reportedly given only 5 minutes of notice before the announcement went public. It was a cold, surgical strike by a Five Eyes ally that had seen the internal audit reports and decided to walk away. The internal collapse reached a breaking point just weeks ago, in April 2026. Melanie Poole, the vice chairman of the Birmingham 2027 board and a titan of British charity governance, resigned without a press release. Her departure created a power vacuum at the very top of the organisation. Insiders whisper that Poole refused to sign off on the projected licensing fees destined for London. This brings us to 72 hours ago. May 15, 2026. Harry's gaunt face on a screen, admitting to hurdles. But the real consequence of that video wasn't the apology itself, it was the legal trigger it pulled. We can now confirm that at least 3 major corporate sponsors have activated moral and reputational clauses in their contracts. These clauses allow brands to terminate their support if the association brings them into disrepute. The brand is no longer just bleeding money, it is losing its soul. But how does the money actually move? How does a donation meant for a wounded soldier end up as a luxury expense in a private ledger? In the next segment, we pull back the curtain on the one-way valve mechanism, a financial structure so sophisticated it would make a Wall Street banker blush. Stay tuned, because the next level of this investigation involves a secret bank account and a directive from the heart of the British royal family that Harry never saw coming. The central question haunting every veteran, every taxpayer, and every donor tonight is simple yet devastating. How does an organization with tens of millions of dollars in its coffers justify cutting direct support to wounded soldiers by 63% in a single year? To find the answer, you have to look past the glossy brochures and the emotional Netflix specials. You have to look at the plumbing. You have to understand what we call the one-way valve, a sophisticated financial architecture designed to move public money into private hands while making it legally invisible to auditors. The blueprint for this money crusher is divided into 3 clinical steps. It begins with the trigger. Governments in Canada, Germany, and the United Kingdom do not send money directly to Prince Harry's Foundation in London. Instead, they pour millions into local, non-profit entities, such as the Vancouver Whistler Games Corporation. On paper, this looks like a win for transparency. These are domestic organizations subject to local laws. Taxpayers see the grant, the politicians get their photo op, and the public is told the money is staying home to support the event. But then, the operation begins. This local corporation, which is holding the taxpayers' millions, enters into a contract with the Central Invictus Games Foundation in London. This contract contains a hidden trapdoor, a licensing fee. In order to use the Invictus name, the brand, and the intellectual property, the local organization must pay a massive, undisclosed sum across the Atlantic. We have seen the documents, and exactly how much that fee is remains a black hole, often hidden behind the very redactions that Rachel Maxwell discovered. This brings us to the point of failure, the moment the money crosses the ocean. The second that taxpayer dollar leaves a Canadian or Australian bank account and lands in the United Kingdom, it undergoes a total molecular transformation. It is no longer public tax money subject to the scrutiny of a sovereign government. It is now private charity revenue. The consequence of this transformation is catastrophic for accountability. Every mechanism of oversight in Canada or Australia is instantly neutralized. A Canadian auditor cannot follow a dollar once it becomes the private property of a British charity. A British regulator only sees an inflow of revenue, not its public origin. The two jurisdictions are separated by an Atlantic-sized gap in communication. So, where does the money go once it is cleaned by this licensing mechanism? The Foundation's own filings with the United Kingdom Charity Commission tell a chilling story. In the same year that income rose by 41%, direct grants to veteran organisations were slashed by more than £300,000. While the veterans were told there wasn't enough to go around, the Foundation was busy adding new six-figure executive roles. They were busy growing their cash reserves to nearly £3 million. And most tellingly, they were funding a lifestyle for the principles that has left investigative authors, like Tom Bower, questioning why charity funds are appearing in ledgers for five-star hotels and private jet travel. This isn't an accident. It is a system. It is a machine that turns the public's goodwill into a private executive piggy bank. The one-way valve ensures that the money flows in with a roar and flows out with a whisper, directed toward the people running the show rather than the soldiers standing on the podium. But as the world watches May 18th, 2026, the valve is beginning to leak. The royal family is no longer looking the other way. In fact, a secret meeting took place at Windsor Castle just hours ago, and the topic wasn't just the money, it was who is really in charge. Wait until you hear what the Princess Royal, Anne, has planned for her nephew's flagship project. The first step of this authority staircase is built on cold, hard paper. For 2 years, the Invictus Games Foundation operated in a state of financial shadows, failing to file its annual accounts in a timely manner. But when the 2024 and 2025 filings finally landed on the desks of the United Kingdom Charity Commission, they didn't just tell a story of growth, they revealed a moral crisis. The documents prove that while the Foundation's total income surged by 41%, the actual money flowing into the hands of veteran organizations was cut by a staggering 63%. The paper trail is undeniable. We are looking at a surplus of nearly £3 million sitting in cash reserves, while the very people the charity was built to serve are seeing their support evaporate. But if you think the paper trail is damaging, look at the second step. The behavior of the world's most powerful corporations. Boeing was more than just a sponsor, they were the institutional anchor of the Invictus brand. A global aerospace giant does not walk away from a royal project without a catastrophic reason. In a move that defines corporate silence, Boeing has officially removed its name from the list of partners. There was no press release. There was no farewell message. There was simply a digital erasure, a blank space where the Boeing logo used to sit. In the world of high-level PR, this is a surgical disconnection. Boeing's internal risk assessment teams have clearly seen something in the 2025 audit that made the brand's association with Harry a liability they could no longer afford. This brings us to the third and most dangerous step of the staircase, the legal nuclear option. As we speak on this morning of May 18, 2026, the British government is holding a £26 million hammer over the Birmingham 2027 Games. This is known as the clawback clause. Within the standard grant agreement for large-scale public events, the government reserves the right to demand the immediate return of every single penny if financial transparency or governance standards are not met to the satisfaction of the Treasury. If the Invictus Board cannot account for the licensing fees moving between Canada and London, the United Kingdom government is legally obligated to trigger this clause. We are not just talking about a loss of future funding, we are talking about a £26 million debt that would bankrupt the foundation overnight. The Charity Commission has already signalled that their scrutiny status could be the first domino in activating this clawback. The legal framework is no longer a suggestion, it is a binding trap. The numbers are no longer just figures on a spreadsheet. They have become a countdown. Every unreturned email to the press, every redacted page in a contract, and every silent exit by a corporate giant is a brick in a wall that is closing in on the Montecito lifestyle. But the most shocking revelation isn't coming from a government auditor or a corporate CEO, it is coming from inside the family. For years, we've wondered when the senior members of the House of Windsor would finally break their silence on Harry's financial ventures. That moment has arrived. Behind the closed doors of Buckingham Palace, a dramatic rift has opened between King Charles and his heir, Prince William, over how to handle the Invictus problem. One wants to save the mission, the other wants to protect the monarchy from the fallout. The details of their private confrontation are beginning to leak, and they point to a move that could change Harry's status forever. Stay with us, because the next chapter involves a directive from the king that no one saw coming. While the Duke of Sussex records his midnight apologies from a garden in California, the real architecture of his legacy is being dismantled 3,000 miles away in the gilded corridors of Buckingham Palace. It is May 18, 2026, and the diplomatic immunity Harry once enjoyed within his own family has officially expired. The financial crisis surrounding the Invictus Games has done what years of interviews and memoirs could not. It has forced the hand of the king and the heir to the throne. At the center of this storm is King Charles III, a man currently caught in an agonizing vice between his identity as a father and his duty as a sovereign. Sources close to the Privy Purse suggest that the king's patience with the operational oversights has vanished. Charles has reportedly commissioned his own private audit, a deep-dive financial investigation conducted by independent intelligence professionals. He isn't waiting for the Charity Commission's report. He needs to know now. For the king, the fear is no longer just about Harry's reputation, it is about the contagion effect. If a royal-adjacent charity is found to be moving public money into private luxury ledgers, the shadow falls on the entire House of Windsor. The king is looking for a way to save his son, but his advisors are telling him that the price of that rescue may be the total surrender of Harry's remaining titles. But if the king is searching for a middle ground, his eldest son has already moved to the war room. Prince William's attitude is being described by palace insiders as permafrost. There is no dialogue, only distance. We can now confirm that at Kensington Palace, William has issued a cold, surgical directive to the board of the Duchy of Cornwall. His order was explicit: not a single penny of Duchy funds, or any resource under my control, is to be used to bridge the deficit of the Invictus Games until the redactions in Canada are lifted and every dollar is accounted for. This is a financial firewall. William is not just refusing to help. He is ensuring that the wealth of the future king is never used to subsidize a brand that he now views as a liability to the British taxpayer. To William, transparency isn't a PR goal, it is a requirement for survival. However, the most dangerous movement for the Sussexes isn't coming from the king or the Prince of Wales. It is coming from the Princess Royal. Princess Anne, the woman often cited as the hardest-working member of the family, has reportedly been holding quiet summits with the heads of the United Kingdom's traditional veteran associations. These are the organisations that have watched in silence as their own grants were cut by 63%, while Invictus executive salaries soared. Anne is not interested in drama, she is interested in governance. Insiders are whispering about a hostile takeover strategy. The plan is to wait for the Birmingham 2027 audit to fail, and then step in to save the mission by removing the celebrity element entirely. This would involve a total rebranding of the games, stripping away the Montecito influence, eliminating the 5-star hospitality suites, and returning the focus to the low-cost, high-impact recovery of wounded soldiers. In this scenario, Harry and Meghan are not the faces of the games. They are the cautionary tale of what happens when a mission is traded for a brand. The friction is no longer a private family matter, it is a battle for the soul of a charitable institution. As the £26 million clawback deadline from the British government looms, the question is, who will the veterans trust? The prince who apologises at 2 a.m, or the princess who has the support of the old guard? The final countdown has begun, and the next 72 hours will reveal a secret that has been hidden in the foundation's payroll for 3 years, a name that will change the entire narrative of where the money went. As we stand here on the morning of May 18, 2026, the myth of the Invictus Games is finally colliding with the reality of its bank statements. The global public, once charmed by the image of the soldier prince, is now demanding a level of accountability that the Montecito public relations machine simply cannot provide. The road ahead has narrowed into 3 distinct paths, 3 scenarios that will determine whether this organization survives as a beacon of hope or becomes a landmark case of charitable failure. The first path is the total collapse. This is the scenario currently being discussed in the dark corners of the United Kingdom's Treasury. If the ongoing investigation into the Vancouver licensing fees uncovers evidence of deliberate financial misrepresentation, the Birmingham 2027 Games will be cancelled. The government would pull the £26 million funding overnight, triggering a state of insolvency. In this scenario, Harry doesn't just lose his charity, he faces a multinational probe into tax fraud involving the movement of public money across sovereign borders. This would be the definitive end of the Sussexes as global humanitarian figures. The second path is the royal purge. This is the scenario favoured by the palace traditionalists and the Princess Royal. Harry would be forced to resign as patron, citing personal reasons, or a desire to focus on his family. The Invictus Games Foundation would then undergo a total royal restructuring. A new board, led by seasoned governance professionals like Melanie Poole, and overseen by Princess Anne, would take control. The focus would shift back to low-cost, grassroots veteran support, stripping away the luxury travel and the Hollywood production values. This would save the mission, but it would effectively erase Harry from his own legacy. The third, and most likely path, is the silent compromise. Behind closed doors, a deal is being brokered to avoid a public trial that would embarrass the entire royal family. In this scenario, Harry remains the figurehead. He keeps the title of patron. He still appears on the magazine covers. But in reality, his hands are completely cut off from the financial lever. A hidden committee of auditors would approve every penny, and the licensing fee mechanism would be permanently dismantled. Harry would become a ghost patron, the face of a brand he no longer controls. However, there is a price for this compromise. The trust of the veteran community is already dead. Even if the games continue, the men and women in uniform now know that for every dollar meant for their recovery, a significant portion was redirected toward the lifestyle of the elite. But there is one final detail that suggests even a silent compromise might be impossible. This brings us back to the document that started it all, the 12 pages of black ink from British Columbia. Investigative teams have been working to digitally lift the redactions from that contract, and on page 7, in a section regarding third-party consultancy payments, there is a name. It isn't the name of a veteran, it isn't the name of a sports coach or a stadium manager. It is a name that links the Invictus treasury directly to a private shell company in Delaware. When Harry recorded that apology on May 15th, he wasn't just apologizing for a delay. He was pleading for mercy before that name became public. The clock is now ticking. The British Ministry of Defence has issued a 48-hour ultimatum to the Foundation's board: disclose the recipient of the page 7 payments, or face the immediate activation of the clawback clause. That deadline expires this Wednesday. The truth is no longer a matter of opinion. It is a matter of time. If you want to be the first to know the identity of the person on page 7, you need to stay tuned. Hit the like button and subscribe to this channel right now, because we are monitoring the Ministry of Defence's server in real time. Drop a comment below with your theory. Who is the secret consultant on page 7? We are entering the endgame, and the next 48 hours will change the British monarchy forever. The images from Reggio Emilia have just hit the wires, and the contrast is absolutely devastating. At exactly 11:15 a.m., on May 16, 2026, the Princess of Wales didn't just walk into a preschool, she stepped into a diplomatic masterclass that has effectively neutralized years of California-based public relations strategy. This is breaking news from Italy that the Montecito camp never saw coming. While Meghan Markle was reportedly finalizing a high-stakes rebranding video in California, Catherine was standing in the heart of northern Italy, proving that true royalty isn't manufactured in a studio, it is earned through 20 years of quiet, relentless discipline. We are looking at the leaked schedules from the Italian Cabinet Office, and the data is staggering. Within 48 hours of Catherine's arrival, the volume of people flooding into the small city of Reggio Emilia increased by 400%. This isn't a fan club, it is a geopolitical phenomenon. Local officials are calling it the Catherine effect, a surge that has shattered every previous record for a solo diplomatic visit in the region. But it was what happened inside the walls of the Asilo Diana kindergarten that has the internet in a frenzy. Imagine the scene. Room 4, known as the Atelier, a sun-drenched space in a historic red brick building. There were no towering security guards blocking the view, no scripted teleprompters, and no camera crews directing the children on how to react. At precisely 11:20 a.m., a young boy in the corner began to cry, overwhelmed by the commotion. Without a second of hesitation, the Princess of Wales bypassed the waiting dignitaries, knelt directly onto the floor, and spoke. Witnesses inside that room are now coming forward to describe the shock of that moment. One teacher recounted the interaction, telling reporters that the princess didn't just offer a polite smile, she leaned in and whispered in perfect, fluent Italian. She asked the child about his drawing, her voice calm and steady. The teacher remarked that it was as if the rest of the world disappeared. The princess wasn't there for a photo op. She was there because she actually knew the curriculum. She was performing a field test of the research she has spent 2 decades studying. This was the silent punishment. While this scene was unfolding in Italy, thousands of miles away in Montecito, Meghan Markle was releasing a promotional video for her lifestyle brand. The timing was not a coincidence. Meghan's video, described by critics as a sultry, overacted audition reel, featured the Duchess in an evening gown, looking dramatically into the camera while handling jars of jam. But as Catherine knelt in the dirt with those children in Italy, the world saw the difference between a celebrity trying to sell a product and a future queen delivering on a promise. If you're finding this deep dive into the royal chess match fascinating, make sure to hit that like button right now and subscribe to our channel. We are tracking every movement of this tour, and you won't want to miss our next update on the financial fallout in California. Comment below. Is Catherine's silent power more effective than Meghan's Hollywood glamour? We want to hear your thoughts. The authority behind Catherine's visit isn't just based on her title, it's based on a dossier of expertise. We have confirmed that before she even set foot in Italy, Catherine had reviewed the latest longitudinal studies from the Reggio Emilia International Centre. She wasn't asking generic questions. She was discussing neural pathways and early childhood development frameworks with the world's leading experts. This is what we call the authority ladder. Level 1. The visual of her speaking fluent Italian, a skill she quietly honed during her time in Florence years ago. Level 2. The official reports from the Italian Ministry of Education, which noted that her questions were profoundly technical and deeply informed. Level 3. The outcome. She didn't just visit, she validated an entire educational philosophy. The mechanism of this PR victory is simple but lethal to her rivals. Step 1. Show up alone, proving you don't need a partner to carry the weight of the crown. Step 2. Speak the local language, instantly removing the barrier between the elite and the people. Step 3. Engage in a topic you have mastered over 20 years, making any lifestyle brand video released at the same time look superficial and desperate. By mid-afternoon on May 16th, the hashtag for the Italian tour had overtaken Meghan's brand launch by a ratio of 10-1. The data doesn't lie. Catherine didn't have to say a single word about her sister-in-law to win. She simply showed up as the most prepared woman in the room. This is the moment the narrative shifted permanently. The Asilo Diana shock has proven that in the world of global influence, substance will always outrun a script. Stay tuned, because the timeline of this collapse is only getting faster. To understand the sheer magnitude of the victory we are witnessing in Italy, we have to look at the forensic timeline of the Montecito collapse. This isn't just a series of bad luck, it is a documented trajectory of strategic failure. As we stand here on May 18, 2026, the data suggests that the Sussex brand hasn't just hit a wall, it has shattered into a million pieces, and the fractures began exactly 2 years ago. The first major warning sign appeared on May 15, 2024. In Montecito, the launch of American Riviera Orchard was supposed to be the definitive answer to the royal family's influence. But instead of a global empire, the world saw 50 jars of jam with labels that were reportedly peeling off before they even reached the influencers. It was a metaphor for the entire operation. High-end branding on the surface, but failing to stick where it mattered. Analysts at the time called it a hobbyist's attempt at a billionaire's game. But the real damage was happening behind the scenes in the accounting offices. By December 10, 2024, the crisis moved from lifestyle products to international diplomacy. In Canberra, the Australian government made a decision that sent shockwaves through the veteran community. They officially withdrew a £5 million funding package for the Invictus team. The internal audit was brutal. It revealed that a staggering 30% of the allocated funds were being diverted to cover the PR expenses, private travel, and security details of Harry and Meghan themselves. The message from the Australian officials was clear. They were no longer willing to subsidise a personal brand disguised as a charitable cause. The financial hemorrhaging didn't stop there. On January 15, 2025, the financial fracture turned into a canyon. In a boardroom in Chicago, Boeing executives reportedly declined to renew their $277 million sponsorship deal for the 2027 Invictus Games. This wasn't just a lost contract, it was the exit of a titan. Without Boeing's massive capital, the organization's foundation began to crumble, leaving the Sussexes without their most prestigious platform. Then came the cultural rejection. On March 20, 2026, Saturday Night Live aired a segment in New York that effectively ended Meghan's Hollywood aspirations. When the show referred to her as an American terrorist in a royal-themed joke, the laughter from the audience was a signal that the Duchess was no longer too big to fail. Her response, a permanent blacklist of the entire NBC network, was described by industry insiders as strategic suicide. You don't freeze out one of the biggest broadcasting networks in the world when your revenue streams are drying up. Yet that is exactly what happened. By May 5, 2026, the desperation reached a peak. While Catherine was preparing to fly to Italy, a carefully constructed essay appeared in the New Statesman under Harry's name. It was a transparent attempt to hijack the news cycle, to pull the cameras away from the Princess of Wales. But it failed. The public didn't want a lecture. They wanted the authenticity that Catherine was about to display in the streets of Reggio Emilia. And that brings us to the breaking news hitting the wires this morning, May 18, 2026. Newly unsealed tax filings in Delaware have revealed the terrifying reality of the Montecito burn rate. To maintain their current lifestyle, the private security, the $15 million mansion, and the elite PR teams, Harry and Meghan are spending a minimum of $6 million every single year. The problem? Their cash reserves are reportedly at an all-time low. They are running a billionaire's lifestyle on a diminishing celebrity's income. The question isn't whether they can afford to stay in California. The question is, what happens when the money runs out, and the only door left open is the one they spent years trying to burn down? The answer might lie in the documents we are currently analyzing regarding the upcoming Australia tour. The contrast is about to become even more dangerous. What we are witnessing is the anatomy of a financial inferno. To the casual observer, the lifestyle in Montecito looks like the pinnacle of success. But when you strip away the filters and the carefully curated press releases, a cold, mathematical reality emerges. This is the money burner mechanism, a three-step cycle of financial entrapment that has effectively cornered the Sussexes while the world watches the Princess of Wales operate with zero overhead and maximum impact. The first stage of this collapse is what analysts call the fixed cost trap. Unlike the royal family, whose security and housing are integrated into the state infrastructure, the Montecito operation must fund every single second of its existence. Internal documents and local real estate filings reveal a staggering baseline. The private security detail alone, required to maintain their perceived status and safety, commands a fee of $3 million per year. Then there is the residence, a $15 million mansion that serves as a gilded cage. With current rates, the interest on the mortgage alone is draining $1.2 million annually from their accounts. Before they even buy a loaf of bread or pay a single publicist, the Sussex machine is $4.2 million in the red. This leads us to the critical trigger condition. For the past few years, this massive overhead was masked by the gargantuan checks from Netflix and Spotify. But those pipelines have run dry. The Spotify deal is a ghost, and the Netflix era is reportedly reaching its contractual sunset without any blockbuster replacements in the pipeline. When the big tech money stops, the fixed costs don't. This creates a vacuum, a financial void that requires immediate, high-volume revenue to fill. The consequence of this void is the third step, desperate PR. This explains the sudden, jarring shift in Meghan's public output. The world was baffled by the recent promotional video for her lifestyle brand, a clip that felt less like a royal engagement and more like a high-fashion audition. In it, the Duchess was seen in an evening gown, drinking tea and handling jam jars with a dramatic, almost sultry intensity. But industry experts see through the glamour. They see a founder trying to trigger a viral sales event to keep the lights on. The problem? The social media algorithms are no longer favoring the royal rebel narrative. Engagement metrics show a sharp decline, as the public's curiosity has been replaced by a demand for the kind of authenticity Catherine is currently displaying in Italy. The most alarming evidence, however, isn't found on social media. but in the federal files. We have tracked a definitive authority trace that suggests the situation has moved beyond a simple marketing slump. Reports, originating from the Internal Revenue Service, indicate that the Archwell Foundation has been flagged for Audit Level 2, a specialized, deep-dive review of tax-exempt organizations. This isn't a routine check. An Audit Level 2 is triggered when there are significant discrepancies between reported activities and financial deductions. The mechanism is now fully visible. The high costs are locked in, the major income streams have vanished, and the federal regulators are beginning to ask questions that a sultry jam video cannot answer. While Catherine spends her days in Italy speaking fluent Italian and connecting with the future of education, the Montecito camp is fighting a war on two fronts, one against a dwindling bank account and another against a legal clock that is ticking louder every day. The question that remains is how much longer the brand can survive the burn. The numbers are speaking, and they are telling a story of a checkmate that is no longer theoretical, but inevitable. While the images of Catherine in Italy suggest a future of stability and grace, a much darker dossier is opening in London, one that threatens to dismantle the last remaining pillar of Prince Harry's public legacy. This is no longer about tabloid rumors. This is about a systemic institutional failure. We are looking at the authority staircase of the Invictus Games Foundation, and the top step is a legal precipice that could lead to the permanent removal of the Duke of Sussex from the organization he founded. The foundation of this crisis is buried in the 2025 audit documents, which have recently been flagged by financial watchdogs. These records show a record-breaking net loss that has effectively wiped out the organization's reserves. But it is the breakdown of the spending that has caused a firestorm. While the games were designed to honor and support wounded veterans, the audit reveals a disturbing trend. Millions of dollars classified as operational overhead and travel expenses. This is the point where the mission of a charity collides with the lifestyle of a celebrity. The situation escalated to a critical level when the United Kingdom's Charity Commission, the ultimate regulatory authority for non-profits, stepped in. We have confirmed that the Commission has issued a formal ultimatum of accountability. They are demanding an immediate and exhaustive justification for the use of charitable funds to finance private jets and five-star hotel suites during the Sussex's recent tours in Germany and Canada. According to insiders, the Commission is specifically looking at a series of luxury stays in Vancouver and Dusseldorf, where the costs for the VIP party reportedly exceeded the direct support provided to the local veteran contingents. The mechanism of this legal trap is found within the Charities Act 2011. This is the Level 3 of authority. Under this act, the Commission holds the power to remove trustees and directors permanently if there is evidence of mismanagement or a failure to protect the charity's assets. This isn't just a slap on the wrist, it is a corporate death sentence for anyone seeking to lead a global organization. If Harry cannot prove that every luxury flight and every five-star room was an essential requirement for the welfare of the veterans by the deadline in September 2026, he faces a total ban from the management of the foundation. Think about the timing. As of today, May 18, 2026, the clock is ticking toward that September cutoff. While Catherine is building international goodwill by kneeling on the floors of Italian schools, Harry is reportedly locked in high-stakes negotiations with legal counsel to save his position. The Charity Commission's ultimatum is clear. The foundation exists for the soldiers, not for the optics of a Hollywood-style rebrand. The irony is profound. The Invictus Games were supposed to be the one thing that was off-limits from criticism. A pure, moral cause that transcended royal drama. But by merging the charity's identity with their own personal PR machine, the Sussexes have triggered a regulatory mechanism that they cannot control with a press release. The Invictus bankruptcy isn't just financial, it is a bankruptcy of trust. If the Duke is stripped of his role under the Charities Act, the final link to his former life of service will be severed. And as this legal battle intensifies in London, a new question is emerging from the shadows. With Boeing gone and the UK government now facing intense public pressure over the £26 million of taxpayer money committed to the Games, what happens if the foundation is declared insolvent before the September deadline? The answer might be found in the secret memoranda currently circulating between the Palace and the Ministry of Defence documents that suggest a very different future for the Invictus Games, one that may not include the Duke of Sussex at all. As we arrive at the midpoint of May 2026, the divide between London and Montecito has transformed from a mere rivalry into a chasm of credibility. Today, May 18th, marks a definitive moment in the history of modern influence, a day where two diametrically opposed strategies have finally collided in the court of public opinion. On one side, we have the soft power of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. On the other, the loud power of the Duchess of Sussex. The data suggests that one is building a legacy, while the other is struggling to maintain a brand. Catherine's solo tour of Italy has been described by diplomatic analysts as a silent manifesto. By choosing to travel without Prince William, the princess has effectively silenced the long-standing narrative that she is merely a supporting player in the royal machine. She has emerged from her recovery not as a victim, but as a symbol of absolute stability. This is the essence of soft power. She doesn't need to demand respect, she commands it by simply existing in the space. In the streets of northern Italy, the credibility gap was closed. When those children ran to her in the school in Reggio Emilia, it was a natural, unscripted reflex, a response to 20 years of consistent, quiet public service. But as the world watches Catherine, a very different set of rumours is swirling around Montecito. While the Princess of Wales focuses on early childhood development, the Sussex camp is reportedly pivoting to what industry insiders call loud power. Reports have surfaced this morning that a high-stakes proposal for a televised vow renewal ceremony is currently being shopped to major streaming platforms. The price tag? A staggering $10 million. The narrative being pitched is one of reclaiming their joy, an attempt to redo their wedding on their own terms, free from the constraints of the institution they left behind. This is the strategic breakpoint, where Catherine uses the monarchy as a platform for service. The latest move from California feels to many like the commercialization of a marriage to bridge a $6 million funding gap. The contrast is devastating. One woman is kneeling on the floor of a schoolhouse, speaking fluent Italian to the next generation. The other is reportedly trying to license her personal life to the highest bidder. The credibility gap has now become a legal and social liability. Meghan's decision to place NBC on a permanent blacklist following the Saturday Night Live ridicule has highlighted a fatal flaw in the loud power strategy. In Hollywood, once you become the punchline, the value of your brand drops precipitously. The ridicule wasn't just a joke, it was a signal that the gatekeepers of American culture have shifted their stance. While Catherine is embraced by foreign governments and the public alike, the Sussexes find themselves increasingly isolated from the very media empires they once relied upon. By the afternoon of May 18, 2026, the authority trace is undeniable. You cannot manufacture 20 years of genuine behavior. And you certainly cannot buy the kind of instinctive trust that Catherine currently enjoys. The $10 million vow renewal might generate a headline, but it cannot repair a fractured reputation. As we look at the dossiers from both camps, it is clear that the Princess of Wales has played a long game of substance, while the Duchess of Sussex is trapped in a short game of survival. The question for the next 48 hours is simple. Can a brand built on loud power survive in a world that is clearly hungry for the soft power of the future queen? The answer is unfolding in real time, and the next move on this global chessboard is about to change everything. As the final hours of May 18, 2026, draw to a close, the data from Italy has provided the most significant authority trace we've seen in years. The global chessboard is shifting, and for the first time, we can clearly project the final moves of this institutional conflict. Based on the financial burn rates, the regulatory pressures on the Invictus Games, and the undeniable surge of the Princess of Wales, There are three distinct scenarios facing the Montecito camp as they enter the second half of the year. The first, and most volatile, is the total media blackout. If the boycott of NBC holds and the new leadership at CBS continues its pivot toward a more traditional news stance, the Sussexes will lose the only thing that sustains their high-cost lifestyle: access. Without a major platform, the Archwell Foundation faces a potential liquidation event by early 2027. In this scenario, we could witness the ultimate extraction: Prince Harry returning to the United Kingdom alone, seeking a negotiated settlement to save the Invictus Games, while the Duchess remains in California to attempt a solo rebranding. The second path is the brand downgrade. To cover that crushing $6 million annual operating cost, the Sussexes may be forced to accept the very thing they once fled: commercial exploitation on a massive scale. We are talking about a descent from global icons to B-list reality stars, participating in scripted documentaries and luxury lifestyle endorsements that lack any royal prestige. This keeps the lights on in Montecito, but it permanently severs their connection to the global stage occupied by Catherine and William. However, the most realistic scenario is what analysts are calling checkmate in Australia. Later this year, the Prince and Princess of Wales are scheduled to visit the Australian continent. This is not just another tour, it is a strategic strike. Australia was once the crown jewel of Harry and Meghan's success, the place where their popularity peaked. If Catherine can replicate her Italian success in Sydney and Melbourne, if she can win over the Australian public with the same quiet dignity and technical expertise she displayed in Reggio Emilia, the Sussexes' claim to being the global royals will be erased. Australia is the final battlefield of their legacy, and the Princess of Wales is currently winning the hearts of the Commonwealth before she even steps off the plane. But the most shocking piece of intelligence has just arrived from our sources inside Kensington Palace. Early this morning, a confidential memorandum was reportedly finalised and sent directly to King Charles. This document outlines the 10-year strategic future of the Commonwealth, and, according to those who have seen the headers, the name Meghan Markle does not appear once. She has effectively been written out of the institutional long game. While Harry is reportedly attempting to negotiate a statement of respect and special security status ahead of his potential return to London in September, he seems to have forgotten the most fundamental rule of the monarchy. Respect is an asset you earn through years of silent service. It is not a clause you can insert into a legal agreement. As the sun sets on May 18th, the Princess of Wales has proven that the most powerful weapon in the royal arsenal isn't a press release or a $10 million vow renewal. It is the ability to show up, do the work, and let the results speak for themselves. The true conflict won't be settled on a talk show. It will be decided on the streets of Sydney. Are you standing with the quiet discipline of the princess or the loud glamour of the Duchess? This dossier is far from closed. If you want to be the first to see the unsealed documents regarding the Australia tour, you need to subscribe right now and turn on all notifications. This story is moving faster than the headlines can keep up with. Like this video to help us expose the truth, and tell us in the comments. Is it already game over for the Montecito brand? We are just getting started. Stay tuned. Breaking news this morning as the world clocks tick toward May 19, 2026. For most, it is just another Tuesday. For the royal family, it marks 8 years since the wedding that was supposed to modernize a 1,000-year-old institution. But for one man sitting in a high-tech studio in the heart of London, today is not about a celebration. It is about a dossier. A thick, leather-bound collection of evidence that has been 5 years in the making. Piers Morgan is leaning into the microphone, his voice carrying the weight of a man who has waited half a decade for the truth to catch up with his instincts. He looks directly into the lens and says, quote, 5 years ago, they took my career because I dared to say I did not believe her. Today, she has finally proven me right in her own handwriting. If you remember the chaos of 2021, you remember the moment Piers Morgan walked off the set of Good Morning Britain. He refused to apologize for his skepticism of Meghan Markle's claims. He was labelled a villain. He was silenced. He was forced out of one of the biggest jobs in broadcasting. But as we sit here today, the tide has not just turned, it has completely evaporated, leaving the Sussex brand exposed in a way we have never seen before. The mainstream media that laughed at him is now quietly scouring the very same documents he is holding. The cracks began to show in a spectacular fashion just weeks ago. At exactly 10:15 a.m. on April 25, 2026, Meghan Markle posted a quote to her 4.5 million followers that sent the digital world into a tailspin. It was a message about ending the hardest 7 years of your life. She shared it twice. On its own, it sounds like typical lifestyle inspiration, but when you place it alongside her actions from just 21 days prior, the logic collapses. Consider the scene in early April. Meghan sat down with her close friend Jamie Kern-Lima for what was billed as her most intimate interview yet. The setting was carefully curated. Soft lighting, rocking chairs, a face with barely any makeup to signal raw honesty. She looked directly into that camera and told the world, quote, "This is the happiest, most fulfilled life I have ever known." She spoke about her thriving marriage in California and her protective husband. Those were her words. They were broadcast to millions. But here is the breaking contradiction that Piers Morgan has highlighted as the smoking gun of her public persona. How can a woman go from the absolute peak of happiness to concluding the hardest 7 years of her life in the space of only 3 weeks? The math does not work. If you are a fan of this deep dive investigation into the truth behind the headlines, hit the like button right now and subscribe to the channel. We are tracking this story as it unfolds in real time, and you do not want to miss the revelations coming in the next hour. Tell us in the comments, which version of the Duchess do you believe? The happy mother in the rocking chair, or the woman struggling through a 7-year nightmare? Piers Morgan did the math that no one else wanted to touch. He counted backward from April 2026. 7 years takes you squarely to 2019. The year of the royal tour to Africa. The year the rifts with the Prince and Princess of Wales became a canyon. The year she was supposedly a working royal representing the Queen. By her own admission now, while she was smiling for the cameras and taking the taxpayer-funded spotlight, she was living through what she now calls the hardest years of her life. This is what Piers has called the contradiction she cannot explain. It is the moment the mask slipped. Royal investigators and top-tier journalists have now confirmed this timeline. It proves that the narrative is shifting based on whatever serves the brand in the moment. When she needs to sell a lifestyle brand, she is happy. When she needs to stoke sympathy for a new project, she is a survivor of a 7-year hell. As we stand here on the morning of May 18th, looking toward the anniversary tomorrow, the evidence is no longer just opinion. It is a documented pattern of conflicting statements. Piers Morgan is no longer the man screaming into the void. He is the man holding the receipt for every word he said 5 years ago, and this is only the first page of the file. The question is no longer whether Piers was right to doubt her. The question is, what else is hidden in those 82 pages of redacted files that the world is about to see? Stay with us as we peel back the next layer of the Morgan files. The investigation deepens as we move from the timeline of personal contradictions into the crumbling foundations of a commercial empire that was supposed to conquer Hollywood. Piers Morgan leans forward in his London studio, tapping his pen against a document titled The California Inventory. He exposes what he calls the mock queen ecosystem, a carefully constructed bubble of enablers designed to maintain the royal fantasy while rejecting the royal duty. Piers highlights a disturbing pattern in the people Meghan Markle has chosen to elevate. Among her inner circle is a prominent Las Vegas astrologer who describes herself as a ride or die for what she calls hot messes. This individual recently went viral for a post celebrating Meghan using the specific phrase, quote, "Here is to reigning again, with a capital R and a capital Q for Queen." Piers Morgan points out the staggering irony. She spent years telling the world how much she hated the confines of the palace, Yet she has built a world in Montecito where her employees and associates are encouraged to treat her like a reigning monarch. You cannot resign from the firm and keep the branding rights to the crown. But the most damaging revelation involves the spectacular collapse of her lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard. Piers breaks down the influencer gifting failure, a mechanism that was supposed to launch a $100 million empire, but instead resulted in what he calls a masterclass in professional embarrassment. The mechanism was simple in theory. Step 1. The trigger. Send ultra-exclusive, hand-numbered luxury packages, organic jams, gourmet chocolates, and artisanal candles to the most powerful women in Hollywood. Step 2. The condition. The product must be flawless to justify the aspirational price tag. Step 3. The incident. When the package arrived at the home of global icon Serena Williams, the reality was broadcast to millions. In a scene that Piers describes as pure brand suicide, Serena Williams attempted an unboxing video for her followers. As the camera rolled, the luxury gourmet chocolates were revealed to be completely smashed and stuck together in a powder blue box. The labels on the jars were visibly peeling off before they were even opened. Serena, trying to be a loyal friend, attempted to read the scent notes on the luxury candles, which were reportedly inspired by royal birthdays. She struggled to pronounce the ingredients, and her facial expression told a story of polite confusion. The consequence was immediate, a deafening silence from the rest of Hollywood's elite, who suddenly realized the brand was not ready for the big leagues. Piers then drops the data that the Sussex PR team has tried desperately to bury. He reveals internal sales figures from her luxury clothing resale platform. Despite the global fame and the millions of followers, the records show that exactly 8 items of clothing were successfully sold. 8. For a woman who once held a $100 million Netflix deal, this is a statistical zero. Reports from local sources in California describe the brand's headquarters as little more than an empty warehouse, lacking the infrastructure to support a global rollout. Piers Morgan scoffs at the reports of a massive lifestyle launch, stating that the emperor has no clothes and the duchess has no inventory. The dream of becoming the next Martha Stewart or Oprah Winfrey is evaporating under the heat of a simple question. If her closest friends cannot pronounce the products and her customers are receiving candles without wicks, what exactly is there left to sell? As the sun sets over London, Piers prepares to move into the most dangerous territory yet. He isn't just looking at broken chocolates anymore. He is looking at a series of geopolitical moves that have reportedly left King Charles and the Prince of Wales in a state of absolute fury. The question hanging in the air is no longer about business. It is about a title that might be stripped before the week is over. The stakes have shifted from smashed chocolates to a constitutional firestorm that is shaking the very foundations of the British Foreign Office. Piers Morgan, sitting before a live feed of the London skyline, turns to a new folder in his dossier. This is no longer about a lifestyle brand. It is about what he calls geopolitical freelancing that has pushed the British monarchy to a breaking point. Piers highlights a moment that triggered absolute panic within the halls of Buckingham Palace. Prince Harry recently travelled to Kyiv, standing alongside heads of state as a private citizen, yet cloaked in the residual authority of his royal title. In a move that Piers describes as infantile and dangerously irresponsible, Harry gave a speech calling for specific American military leadership in Ukraine, a stance that stood in direct, public contradiction to the stated policy of the current administration in Washington. The fallout was immediate. Sources close to the Foreign Office reported a reign of fury as diplomats scrambled to clarify that the Duke of Sussex does not speak for the United Kingdom. But the real verdict came not from a press release, but from the King himself. Piers directs our attention to the official parliamentary records, known as the Hansard, from December 2025. King Charles III stood before a joint session of the United States Congress, a historic moment of global diplomacy. In a meticulously crafted speech, the King spoke of the deep ancestral ties between the British monarchy and American soil. He listed the cities named after his family: Charleston for King Charles II, Williamsburg for King William. Piers Morgan points out the chilling precision of what happened next. The king listed every major royal connection to the United States, acknowledging the family's woven history into the fabric of America. But he did not say the name Harry. In front of the president, both houses of Congress, and a global audience of hundreds of millions, the king performed a calculated erasure. By omitting his second son from the definitive history of the family's American ties, Charles sent a signal that Piers describes as a diplomatic execution. This wasn't an oversight by a speechwriter. It was a deliberate, cold, and irreversible statement of status. Harry was no longer part of the official story. The mechanism of this snub is what Piers calls the authority ladder. It involves three distinct layers of power. First, the documented evidence in the Hansard records. Second, the direct involvement of the Foreign Office, which reportedly vetted every word to ensure no ambiguity remained. Third, the legal reality that a non-working royal cannot freelance on the back of a title they have publicly disparaged. However, the most explosive revelation of this morning involves the woman often referred to as the royal enforcer Princess Anne. Piers reveals that behind the scenes, the Princess Royal has reportedly overseen the finalization of the legal paperwork to activate what insiders call the Andrew option. This is the ultimate constitutional trapdoor. Just as Prince Andrew was stripped of his titles, his patronages, and his official royal residency, a legal framework has now been completed to do the same to Harry. Piers Morgan hints that the documents, now sitting in a red dispatch box, would finalize the removal of Harry's remaining royal privileges, effectively turning him into a private citizen with no legal path back to the institution. The Andrew option is no longer a theory, it is a live file. As the clock ticks toward the anniversary of the wedding that started it all, the world is left wondering, what happens when the enforcer finally hands that file to the king? The answer might be hidden in the one place Harry never expected the world to look. The narrative shifts now from the cold hallways of Buckingham Palace to the federal courtrooms of Washington, D.C., where a legal clock is ticking that neither fame nor royalty can stop. Piers Morgan turns the page to Truth 5, what he calls the debris of the Sussex playbook. He examines the social trail left behind by Meghan Markle, a pattern of systemic removal that he argues is the most telling psychological profile of the brand. Piers recounts the list of those who have been ghosted, a term that has become synonymous with the Duchess. From her own father, Thomas Markle, to childhood friends and professional advisors who helped her navigate her early royal life, the pattern is identical. Once a person's utility is exhausted, they are erased. Piers reflects on his own experience, noting the irony of a woman hosting a podcast about the nuances of friendship while leaving a trail of discarded relationships across 2 continents. He highlights the bullying inquiry from Kensington Palace, noting that it wasn't just a tabloid story, but a formal administrative record of staff members who described their confidence being systematically undermined. A woman who cuts off her own blood, Piers says, is a woman who will eventually find herself standing in a very empty room. But social isolation is a luxury compared to the legal disaster that constitutes Truth 4. Piers Morgan reveals a set of documents obtained through the Heritage Foundation, a powerful Washington think tank that has spent 2 years fighting the Department of Homeland Security in federal court. This is what Piers calls the visa time bomb, and it is the most credible threat to Prince Harry's residency in the United States. Piers breaks down the mechanism of visa perjury, a federal offense that carries the non-negotiable penalty of deportation. The evidence is not coming from an anonymous source or a palace leaker. It is coming from Harry's own hand. In his memoir, Spare, Harry openly admitted to the use of cocaine, cannabis, psychedelic mushrooms, and ayahuasca. Under United States federal law, specifically the requirements of the DS 160 visa application form, an applicant must disclose prior drug use. The visa perjury mechanism works in 3 clinical steps. Step 1. The admission. Harry has provided the world with a written, self-published confession of substance use. Step 2. The cross-reference. If Harry checked no on his visa application regarding drug use, he committed perjury. If he checked yes, he required a special waiver that is rarely granted to ordinary citizens. Step 3. The trigger. In an era of heightened immigration scrutiny, especially under the current political climate in Washington, any discrepancy is grounds for the immediate revocation of a visa. Piers displays a visual that has haunted the Sussex legal team for months. 82 pages of Department of Homeland Security records. But there is a catch. More than 50% of those pages are entirely redacted, completely blacked out. What are they hiding? Piers asks his audience. If the application was honest, if the process was standard, why is more than half of the file under a federal seal? As we sit here on May 18, 2026, with a new administration taking the reins in the United States, the protection Harry once enjoyed is evaporating. Piers Morgan suggests that the goodwill of the state has run out. The question is no longer if Harry lied on his application, but how much longer the federal government is willing to protect a man who has publicly admitted to breaking the very laws he swore to uphold when he touched down on American soil. The dossier is nearly open. But as Piers prepares to reveal the final truths, he pivots to a reality that even the best lawyers cannot fix. He is looking at the bank accounts. He is looking at the dwindling inheritance. And he is looking at a financial reckoning that is approaching at a speed no one in Montecito is prepared for. The true cost of the Sussex dream is about to be tallied, and the numbers are devastating. The illusion of the billionaire California lifestyle is fracturing under the weight of a ledger that no longer balances. As we move into the final hours of this global broadcast on May 18, 2026, Piers Morgan turns his attention to the two most guarded secrets in the Sussex estate, the money and the internal HR files. He describes what is happening now as a synchronized collapse. Piers reveals Truth 3, the financial reckoning that Montecito insiders have whispered about for months but which is now becoming visible to the naked eye. In the ultra-exclusive enclave of Santa Barbara, wealth is measured not by the purchase of a house, but by its maintenance. Piers presents a startling detail from a local architectural audit. The $14 million mansion, where the Sussexes reside, has not undergone a significant renovation or structural update in over 15 years. In a neighborhood where property is constantly flipped or modernized to maintain value, this is a glaring red flag. Piers quotes a prominent Montecito real estate source who described the couple as, quote, the poorest rich people in the room. The mechanism of this financial drain is a three-step cycle that has reached its terminal phase. Step 1. The depletion of capital. Between high-stakes security costs, international legal fees, and an aggressive PR machine, the estimated $30 million inherited from Princess Diana and the Queen Mother has reportedly been spent rather than invested. Step 2. The failure of the content engine. With the Spotify deal dead and the Netflix contract nearing a non-renewal phase, the massive infusions of cash have stopped. Step 3. The lifestyle trap. They are maintaining a royal standard of living on a celebrity freelancer's budget. Piers notes that while the couple presents an image of limitless wealth, the lack of a single major brand partnership in 26 suggests that the Sussex gold has lost its luster. This financial pressure serves as the backdrop for Truth 2, the bullying files. Piers Morgan stands on the firmest ground of his career here, invoking the name of Jason Knauf, the former communications secretary for the couple. He recounts the documented email from October 2018, where Knauf expressed, quote, serious concern that the Duchess was able to bully two PAs out of the household. The email was not a rumor. It was a formal administrative record sent to the King's private secretary. Piers highlights the staggering contrast between Meghan's recent content, a podcast series celebrating the art of human connection and sisterhood, and the reality of the Kensington Palace HR records. Those records reportedly document at least 2 staff members who suffered what was described as systemic psychological trauma and a total loss of professional confidence. The mechanism of the sealed report is what Piers calls the ultimate institutional shield. In 2021, the palace launched a formal investigation into these allegations. The investigation concluded in 2022, but the results were locked in a safe under the guise of protecting the privacy of those involved. Piers Morgan, however, claims to have seen the summaries. He tells his audience, "The reason the palace will not release the report is not to protect the staff, it is to protect the monarchy from the sheer toxicity of what was found. If the public saw the testimony of those young women, the Sussex brand would be radioactive by noon." As the clock ticks toward the anniversary, Piers Morgan makes a chilling declaration. He suggests that the sovereign immunity that has kept these files sealed is being reviewed by the Cabinet Office. The pressure to be transparent is mounting. The financial runway is shortening, and the woman who preaches about kindness is standing on the edge of a documented history that suggests the exact opposite. Piers prepares to turn the final page, the truth that even he was told never to speak out loud. The one truth from which there is no recovery. We have reached the final page of the dossier, the moment where the scandals, the failed brands, and the legal threats converge into one undeniable reality. Piers Morgan leans back, his expression one of somber vindication. He presents Truth 1, what he calls the total collapse of credibility. This is the foundational failure that makes every other problem impossible to fix. Piers argues that the central issue is no longer about specific lies or documented contradictions. It is an identity crisis that has exhausted the world's patience. The problem, Piers states, is that she has never decided who she actually is. Is she the silenced victim or the global victor? Is she a royal duchess or a Hollywood celebrity, a devoted mother or a commercial brand, the happiest she has ever been or a woman barely surviving? By trying to inhabit every one of these roles simultaneously, she has become none of them. The audience hasn't just stopped liking her, they have stopped believing in the character she is playing. The global public, once captivated by the fairy tale, now views every move through the lens of a PR strategy. And once trust is gone in the world of high-stakes branding, there is no path back. As we look toward the 18th and 19th of May, 2026, Piers Morgan outlines the scenario tree, 3 possible futures for the House of Sussex based on the legal and royal intelligence he has gathered. The first branch is the fall. This is the scenario triggered by the federal court's decision on Harry's visa. If the redactions are lifted and the lie is confirmed, Harry faces a federal deportation order. Piers suggests this would lead to a total domestic fracture, where Meghan remains in California to protect what is left of her brand, leading to a high-profile legal separation and a battle over the remaining Sussex assets. The second branch is the exile. In this scenario, the couple remains in Montecito but becomes culturally irrelevant. They are the phantoms of the hills, living in a mansion they cannot afford to fix, ignored by the Hollywood elite, and cut off from the royal family. They become a media relic, a cautionary tale of what happens when you trade 1,000 years of history for a handful of fleeting headlines. But Piers reveals the third branch, which he calls the royal erasure, as the most realistic outcome. In this scenario, King Charles, under immense pressure from Prince William and Princess Anne, makes the nuclear move. He signs a letters patent that officially removes the Sussex titles. Prince William, the future king, reportedly goes a step further, issuing a lifetime ban on Harry ever entering a royal residence again. The Sussexes are not just out of the family, they are erased from the institution's future, their names removed from the official website and their connection to the crown severed with surgical precision. If you have followed this investigation to the end, you know the truth is often stranger than the headlines. If you want to stay ahead of the next major breaking news in this royal saga, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on all notifications. We are monitoring the situation at the Home Office and the Department of Homeland Security around the clock. Like this video if you believe the truth must be told. And tell us in the comments, which of these 3 scenarios do you think is inevitable? Piers Morgan reaches for a single red envelope resting on top of his desk. He holds it up to the camera, a cold smile appearing on his face. Today is May 18th, he says. Tomorrow is their 8th wedding anniversary. For years, the world wondered what the king would send them. But I can tell you that a gift from London just landed at a law firm in California this morning. It is not a card. It is an ultimatum. He taps the red envelope. Inside these pages is the final decision on their status, and I will reveal exactly what the king has demanded in our next broadcast. The game is over. The screen fades to black, leaving only the sound of a ticking clock. Stay tuned.